Part 1. Coelendrodromeus. Coelendrodromeus sabicalicus emerged from Siberia's Middle Jurassic wetlands roughly 168 million years ago, its delicate frame no larger than a domesticated dog. At just over a meter in length and weighing around 2 kilograms, this small bipedal herbivore combined athletic limbs, a long tail for balance, and a short snout lined with modest leaf-shaped teeth. The first fossils surfaced in volcanic ash, rich layers of the Yutyrannus formation, where rapid burial by ash and mud preserved not only bones but faint impressions of skin and feathers. This extraordinary preservation elevated Coelendrodromeus from a footnote in dinosaur evolution to a cornerstone in understanding how feathers first appeared outside of meat-eating theropods. Remarkably, Coelendrodromeus sported both scales and multiple types of feather-like filaments, a mosaic of integument that rewrote the story of dinosaur skin coverings. The trunk and neck bore simple, hair-like proto-feathers up to 3 centimeters long, arranged in a fine undercoat for insulation. On the upper arms and thighs, clusters of 6 to 7 thicker downy filaments sprang from bony base plates in a hexagonal pattern, suggesting display or additional warmth. Even more intriguingly, ribbon-like bundles of parallel filaments adorned the lower legs, hinting at complex visual or tactile functions in movement. These 3 distinct filament types reveal that feather precursors were far more widespread and functionally diverse than previously believed. Scales, too, displayed sophisticated variation. Overlapping hexagonal scales, each under 4 millimeters in diameter, cloaked the lower shins. Hands and ankles featured tiny non-overlapping round scales, and 5 longitudinal rows of large rectangular scutes, some 2 centimeters across, ran down the tail's top, their front edges overlapping the trailing edge of the preceding scute. This combination of scales and filaments illustrates a dual strategy. Scales provided abrasion resistance in high wear areas, while feathers and proto-feathers regulated temperature and enabled visual signaling long before the evolution of flight. The Discovery Site's volcanic ash layers acted as a natural time capsule, preserving dozens of skeletons ranging from juveniles to subadults. Juvenile specimens reveal that feather development began early in life. Even the smallest individuals possess fully formed proto-feathers. Their limb bones show robust muscle attachment scars, indicating that these hatchlings were already capable runners, dashing across the ash-blanketed floodplain soon after hatching. Rapid mobility, combined with insulating filaments, would have been essential for maintaining body temperature and avoiding predators in a climate marked by seasonal extremes and sudden volcanic events. Anatomical features place Coelendrodromeus near the base of Neornithischia, the branch of ornithischian dinosaurs that gave rise to ceratopsians and duckbills. Its mixture of primitive traits, such as a simple jaw hinge and unimpressive dental battery, and derived characteristics, like its complex integument, suggests it occupied a pivotal evolutionary position. Coelendrodromeus demonstrates that feather-like structures emerged at least twice in dinosaur evolution, once in the Saurischian line that led to birds, and once in ornithischians. Alternatively, it implies that the common ancestor of all dinosaurs may have carried proto-feathers, a hypothesis that challenges long-standing views of dinosaur skin as uniformly scaly. The paleo-environment of Coelendrodromeus was a tapestry of marshes, river channels, and ash-fall-formed lakes. Conifer forests and stands of horsetails provided abundant low-growing vegetation, while intermittent volcanic eruptions blanketed the land with nutrient-rich ash, periodically resetting the ecological stage. In these dynamic settings, the combination of scales and feathers would have offered both protection and adaptability, scales guarded against abrasive plant matter and volcanic grit, and filamentous coverings maintained body warmth during cooler nights and helped shed excess heat during midday sun. The function of Chilindrodromeus's filamentous coverings likely extended beyond thermoregulation. Display is a strong candidate. The patterned arrangement of filament clusters and ribbon-like bundles could have signaled age, sex, or health status to conspecifics. Juveniles displaying more vibrant or denser filaments may have secured better foraging opportunities or social standing within herds. Moreover, these visual signals would have been especially important in low-light forest understories, where bursts of filament movement and color contrast could have communicated warnings or coordinated group movements. Modern research methods have peeled back more layers of Chilindrodromeus's story. High-resolution microscopy of filament bases reveals tiny grooves and pits where blood vessels once nourished feather precursors, confirming their dynamic growth. CT scanning of fossilized skin peels captures the three-dimensional arrangement of scales and filaments, showing how they interlink to form a seamless protective and insulative covering. Isotopic analysis of bone phosphate hints at body temperatures more stable and elevated than those of contemporaneous reptiles, suggesting an intermediate metabolic strategy between ectothermy and avian-like endothermy. Chilindrodromeus stands as a testament to the evolutionary ingenuity of dinosaurs. By blending scales with multiple filament types, it exploited a wider range of ecological niches and climatic conditions. Its discovery forced a re-evaluation of the origins of feathers, shifting the paradigm from bird-only lineage to a broader dinosaurian heritage. In every delicate filament and scaled scute lies a story of adaptation and survival, a narrative that continues to inform our understanding of how diverse life strategies flourished in the shadows of Siberian volcanoes during the Jurassic. Part 2. Bepiasaurus. Bepiasaurus inexpectus appeared in the early Cretaceous landscapes of northeastern China, roughly 125 million years ago, wandering amid volcanic ash beds and lush conifer forests. At about 2 meters in length and weighing close to 30 kilograms, it was a modestly sized Therizinosaur, smaller than the later giants like Therizinosaurus, but among the largest known feathered dinosaurs until Yutyrannus's discovery. Its name, Bepia lizard, honors the city near its find site, where 3 partial skeletons were unearthed in the ash-rich Yixian Formation. This geological setting, with rapid ashfall and fine volcanic silt, perfectly preserved not only bones but also impressions of downy plumage that revolutionized our understanding of non-avian dinosaur feathers. Feather impressions reveal that Bepiasaurus sported at least 2 distinct feather morphologies. A soft, downy undercoat covered most of its body, while elongated, broad filamentous feathers, EBFFs, adorned its arms and tail. These EBFFs, each a ribbon-like bundle up to 10 centimeters long, likely served display functions during courtship or social interactions. Melanosome analysis indicates these filaments carried rich brown pigments, creating subtle but effective visual signals against the green and russet backdrop of early Cretaceous woodlands. Together, the down and EBFFs formed a 2-tiered plumage system that provided both insulation and intricate display capabilities. Despite its theropod heritage, Bepiasaurus defied carnivorous expectations with a suite of herbivorous adaptations. Its skull was narrow and lightly built, featuring a small keratinous beak at the front and leaf-shaped serrated cheek teeth optimized for shredding plant material. The jaws opened wide to crop ferns, horsetails, and early flowering plants, while a muscular gizzard suggested by gastric millstones found nearby ground tough vegetation. Long glacial neck vertebrae allowed for a surprisingly broad feeding envelope, enabling the dinosaur to reach foliage at multiple heights before ambulating to fresh browsing spots. Arms and claws presented a paradox. Each forelimb bore 3 massive hooked claws up to 20 centimeters long, more reminiscent of razor-sharp talons than the blunt hooves of typical herbivores. Evidence suggests these formidable claws functioned primarily as branch pullers and strip-shoot harvesters, allowing Bipiosaurus to manipulate and detach high fibrous plants. Wear patterns on claw tips show smooth polishing and microscopic striations consistent with repeated scraping along branch surfaces, behaviors that would have allowed juveniles and adults alike to access foliage beyond the reach of competing herbivores. Hind limb anatomy underscores an agile bipedal lifestyle. A tibia, longer than the femur, and a lightly built pelvis hint at the ability to move swiftly when necessary, perhaps to evade predators like Ornithosaurus or Confucius ornithiform birds that shared its habitat. Trackways attributed to small Therizinosaurs reveal narrow-gauge, digitigrade prints with prominent claw marks, indicating that juveniles were capable, if cautious, runners. Their speed, combined with insulating feathers, would have allowed them to maintain stable body temperatures, crucial for young dinosaurs in the fluctuating early Cretaceous climate. Bone histology of juvenile Bipiosaurus specimens displays rapid early growth, with thick woven fibered bone, indicating high metabolic rates. Vascular canals crisscross the cortical bone, reflecting sustained nutrient delivery needed for swift development. As these dinosaurs aged, growth rings began to appear, marking seasonal slowdowns in bone deposition that correspond to monsoonal cycles of the Yixian formation. This pattern betrays a life tightly linked to environmental rhythms. Hatchlings grew fastest during wet seasons of abundant plant growth, then slowed in drier periods to conserve resources. Skin impressions from rare specimens capture more than feathers. Minute scales covered the top of the head and back of the neck, forming small, non-overlapping nodules that prevented abrasion where feathers were absent. Surrounding these scales, filamentous feathers created a patchwork of hard and soft integument, providing abrasion resistance alongside insulation. This dual covering likely protected juveniles from volcanic grit and rough vegetation while retaining body heat, an evolutionary compromise between reptilian armor and avian plumage. The evolutionary significance of Bipiosaurus cannot be overstated. As one of the earliest herbivorous theropods to exhibit complex feathers, it occupies a key position in the dinosaur family tree, linking the origins of feathers to functions beyond flight. Its anatomy demonstrates that feathers evolved initially for insulation and display, then secondarily for other roles such as brooding or sensory functions. By combining herbivory, display plumage, and agile locomotion, Bipiosaurus exemplifies the experimental nature of early Therizinosauria, a lineage that would flourish in the diverse ecosystems of the Cretaceous. The story of Bipiosaurus reminds us that even dinosaurs once labeled raptors embraced vegetative diets and elaborate feathers long before birds took flight. In its delicate filaments and robust claws, we see a narrative of adaptation, how a small feathered dinosaur carved out a niche amid towering conifers and volcanic upheavals. Each fossil whisper of brown down and ribboned EBFFs tells of dinosaurian ingenuity, illustrating a world where form and function converged to shape the earliest chapter of feathered herbivores. Part 3. Eoraptor. Eoraptor lunensis prowled the riverbanks of the late Triasic's Esquiguelas to floodplains approximately 231 million years ago, a slender creature no more than a meter long and weighing around 10 kilograms. Its fossils, first unearthed in the 1990s at Argentina's Valle de la Luna, cemented its status as one of the most primitive known dinosaurs. The mudstone and volcanic ash of the Esquiguelas to formation preserved multiple nearly complete skeletons, revealing a delicate skull perched atop a flexible neck and a lithe body built for speed. Far from a hulking giant, Eoraptor's lightweight design underscores the humble beginnings of the dinosaur lineage, tracing the evolutionary origins of all later dinosaurs to this small, fleet-footed ancestor. The ecosystem that nurtured Eoraptor was a mosaic of braided streams, seasonal lakes and conifer groves under a monsoonal climate. Ferns and horsetails carpeted the lowlands, while cycads and early ginkgo ales dotted the upland edges, providing ample foraging opportunities for small herbivores and omnivores. Predatory archosaurs like Lagerpeton lurked in the underbrush, jostling Eoraptor and its kin for ecological dominance. Yet Eoraptor thrived in this dynamic world by exploiting a versatile diet and keen agility, illustrating how early dinosaurs carved out niches in ecosystems already crowded with reptilian competitors. Skull anatomy places Eoraptor at a pivotal point near the base of Dinosauria. Its slender snout housed a mix of blade-like serrated teeth at the front, ideal for slicing flesh, and broader, leaf-shaped cheek teeth for cropping vegetation. This heterodont dentition speaks to an opportunistic feeding strategy. Hatchlings and juveniles likely sampled insects, small vertebrates and tender plants, shifting toward more herbivorous tendencies as they matured. Wear patterns on its teeth reveal both slicing and grinding motions, indicating a flexible masticatory cycle that cushioned Eoraptor against seasonal fluctuations in food availability. The postcranial skeleton of Eoraptor underscores its adeptness at bipedal locomotion. Long, gracile hind limbs terminated in 3 main toes tipped by recurved claws, optimally arranged for rapid strides and agile turns. The tibia, slightly longer than the femur, hints at a naturally digitigrade posture that conserved energy during sustained activity. Its tail, elongated and stiffened by interlocking chevrons, served as a dynamic counterbalance, allowing the animal to pivot quickly while pursuing prey or fleeing larger predators. These locomotor innovations reveal that speed and maneuverability were essential survival tools for early dinosaurs in the competitive Triassic. The forelimbs of Eoraptor, though shorter, were far from vestigial. Each ended in hands bearing 5 digits, the first 3 equipped with sharp, grasping claws. Muscle scars on the humerus and ulna suggest powerful flexors, enabling Eoraptor to grasp branches or small prey items with precision. This manual dexterity complements its dental versatility, painting the picture of an animal capable of both browsing for plant matter and snatching insects or small lizards. By blending fine manipulation with swift movement, Eoraptor exemplifies the ecological adaptability that would characterize Dinosauria's long reign. Embryonic development in close relatives of Eoraptor hints at rapid early growth rates. Bone histology of similar early saurischians reveals an initial phase of fibrolamellar bone deposition, signaling elevated metabolic rates and swift size increase to outpace predation threats. In Eoraptor's case, juveniles likely doubled in length within their first year, transitioning quickly from vulnerable hatchlings to adept young adults. This growth strategy, fast early growth followed by more moderate adult maintenance, provided a powerful evolutionary advantage in the predator-rich Triassic landscapes. Phylogenetic analyses consistently place Eoraptor close to the split between sauropodomorphs and theropods, making it a living bridge between two colossal dinosaur lineages. Its blend of primitive traits, such as a simple jaw joint and plesiomorphic ankle bones, and derived features including heterodont teeth and advanced wrist joints, underscores the mosaic nature of early dinosaur evolution. By studying Eoraptor's anatomy, paleontologists piece together the sequence of morphological changes that led to both the long-necked giants and the fierce bipedal predators that would follow. Eoraptor's legacy extends beyond its own lineage, shaping our understanding of how dinosaurs conquered the world. Its discovery in Argentina, a landmass then part of southern Pangaea, highlights the rapid geographic dispersal of dinosaurs across ancient supercontinents. The prevalence of similarly ancient dinosaurs in Africa and Europe suggests a near-simultaneous rise of saurischians around the globe. Eoraptor thus stands as a testament to the speed and versatility with which the first dinosaurs radiated into myriad forms, setting the stage for the Mesozoic's age of giants. In the gentle curve of its filleted ribs, the sharp line of its serrated teeth, and the slender arcs of its limb bones, Eoraptor preserves the story of Dinosauria's dawn. Each fossil specimen offers a snapshot of a critical moment millions of years ago when small, nimble creatures began an evolutionary journey that would dominate terrestrial ecosystems for over 160 million years. By unraveling the secrets of Eoraptor, scientists continue to illuminate the pathways of early dinosaur evolution and the indomitable spirit of life that thrives in the face of ancient challenges. Part 4. Rarest. Rarest chigualastensis stalked the late Triassic floodplains of northwestern Argentina some 231 million years ago, a lean predator measuring roughly 3–6 meters long and weighing between 200 and 300 kilograms. Its discovery in the Chigualasto Formation, a tapestry of river channels, volcanic ash beds and fern-draped lowlands, revealed one of the earliest true dinosaurs. Scattered skeletal remains, including nearly complete specimens, attest to its swift rise as a top carnivore in a world still dominated by crocodile relatives and mammal ancestors, carving out a niche that would presage the later global reign of theropods. The skull of Rarest combined both strength and agility. A narrow snout curved downward, bristling with serrated, blade-like teeth optimized for slicing flesh. Protruding premaxillary teeth at the tip of the snout likely helped grip slippery prey, while the deeper, recurved teeth further back severed tendons and muscle. Robust jaw joints and pronounced jaw musculature extended from the temporal fenestrae, generating powerful bites despite the skull's overall gracility. In juvenile specimens, the same dental pattern appears in miniature, suggesting that even hatchlings and yearlings were born equipped to tackle small vertebrates and carrion as soon as they emerged from their eggs. Postcranial anatomy speaks of a creature built for speed. Long hind limbs end in 3 functional toes tipped with sharp claws, designed for rapid digitigrade strides. The tibia slightly outstripped the femur in length, a hallmark of cursorial predators, while a stiffened tail served as a dynamic counterbalance, stabilizing agile turns during high-speed pursuits. Fossil trackways from the same strata trace elongated, closely spaced prints with pronounced claw indentations, indicating juvenile Rarest could sprint effectively alongside adults, relying on bursts of speed to overtake prey or evade larger carnivores in a landscape punctuated by volcanic eruptions. Forelimb structure provides intriguing hints at prey capture strategies. Though shorter than the hind limbs, the arms bore grasping hands with 3 functional fingers, each ending in recurved claws capable of piercing flesh or holding struggling victims. Muscle attachment scars on the humerus and ulna suggest strong flexor and extensor muscles, enabling rapid slashing and pinning motions. Juveniles display the same morphology, implying that young Herrerasaurids learned to wrestle with small reptiles and amphibians under the protective gaze of adults, early training in the lethal arts that would define their lineage. Herrerasaurus lived alongside a diverse assemblage of contemporaries. Small herbivores, such as rhinoceros, grazed on ferns and seed ferns. Early mammal relatives scuttled beneath vegetation, and other archosaurs like Saurolophus reigned as apex predators. In this competitive ecosystem, Herrerasaurus occupied a mid to top trophic level, using its combination of speed, agility, and precise bite mechanics to exploit niches inaccessible to slower, bulkier predators. Juveniles, though smaller, benefited from the same predatory toolkit, likely focusing on insects, amphibians, and lizards until they grew large enough to tackle more substantial prey. Growth studies of Herrerasaurid bones reveal rapid juvenile development. Thin sections of limb bones show dense vascular canals and fibrolamellar bone, indicative of sustained elevated growth rates. Hatchlings likely doubled in size within their first year, a necessary adaptation to escape the jaws of larger carnivores. As they matured, growth ring patterns appeared, marking seasonal slowdowns during drought or resource scarcity. This biphasic growth, an initial sprint followed by moderated maturation, mirrors life history strategies in many modern endotherms, suggesting an ancestral metabolic shift toward elevated energy budgets. Reproductive biology in Herrerasaurus remains obscure, but considerations from related Triassic dinosaurs hint at nesting behaviors near riverbanks or in vegetated floodplain hollows. Egg clutches, if laid communally, may have been buried under sand or vegetation, relying on ambient heat rather than brooding. Hatchling skeletons found near adult remains suggest at least some degree of parental proximity, though direct evidence of brooding or feeding remains elusive. The rapid mobility of young Herrerasaurus, however, implies that as soon as they hatched, they followed adults in search of safety and food, learning predatory tactics through direct observation and early practice. Phylogenetic analyses place Herrerasaurus at or near the base of Saurischia, though its exact relationships, whether basal theropod or basal Saurischian, remain debated. Its blend of primitive traits, like a relatively simple pelvic structure, and derived features, such as advanced hind limb proportions, underscores the mosaic evolution that characterized early dinosaurs. Juvenile morphology exhibits the same combination, indicating that the fundamental bore plan of Herrerasaurus was established early in ontogeny and mirrored the evolutionary experiments of the Triassic radiation. Herrerasaurus stands as a testament to the agility and innovation of early dinosaurs, from the finely serrated teeth of its hatchlings to the whip-like tail of its subadults. Every aspect of its anatomy reveals a world in transition, where speed, precision, and metabolic resilience unlocked new ecological possibilities. In the delicate matrix of Triassic sediments, Herrerasaurus's story endures, pointing toward the dawn of the dinosaur era and the triumph of a lineage that would come to rule Earth for millions of years. Part 5. Cryolophosaurus. Cryolophosaurus elioti prowled ancient Antarctic woodlands around 194 million years ago. Its unmistakable crest, a forward-swept, waxy ridge atop the skull, rising above a snowy horizon, long before polar dinosaurs were expected. At 7 to 8 meters in length and tipping the scales at nearly half a ton, this apex predator was the largest known dinosaur of the early Jurassic, stalking along riverbanks carved in volcanic silt and ash. Discovery of its fossils in the transantarctic mountains revealed that dinosaurs thrived within polar circles, enduring months of winter darkness and cold that would challenge even the hardiest warm-blooded creatures. The skull of Cryolophosaurus offers a window into its formidable feeding apparatus. Behind the crest, ample temporal openings housed powerful jaw muscles, capable of driving both slicing and crushing motions. Its teeth lived up to this dual function. Stout, recurved incisors at the front, snatched slippery prey such as fish and amphibians, while broad, serrated cheek teeth toward the back shredded tougher flesh. This heterodont dentition reveals a versatile diet, enabling Cryolophosaurus hatchlings and juveniles to exploit anything from small vertebrates in meltwater pools to juvenile herbivores venturing near its lair. Limbs of Cryolophosaurus reflect a compromise between speed and power. Strong hind limbs with a tibia slightly longer than the femur supported bursts of acceleration, perhaps up to 30 kilometers per hour, ideal for ambush along river bends. Its three-toed feet bore sharp claws for traction on soft ash-covered substrates, while a robust tail braced by interlocking vertebral processes provided stability during tight turns. Juveniles, proportionally lighter and more gracile, could sprint faster than adults, using agility to dodge larger predators or to practice hunting skills under the watchful gaze of their parents. The signature cranial crest likely served multiple roles beyond simple ornamentation. In adults, its display function is obvious, flashing as an exaggerated signaling device during mating seasons or territorial disputes. Juvenile Cryolophosaurus, however, shows smaller, developing crests, suggesting that display began early in life as a means of individual recognition within sibling groups. This early onset of cranial ornamentation may have helped hatchlings differentiate family members in dim polar light, reinforcing social bonds essential for cooperative hunting and shared thermoregulation in frigid conditions. Living on the edge of habitability, Cryolophosaurus evolved behavioral adaptations to cope with extended darkness and cold. Evidence from bone histology indicates periods of slowed growth, lines of arrested growth corresponding to polar winters, followed by rapid spurts during brief summers of abundant plant and prey activity. Juveniles displayed pronounced growth banding, suggesting an early synchronization of life cycles with seasonal rhythms. Nesting sites likely clustered near geothermal hotspots or volcanic vents, where warmth from underground heat vents prevented nest freezing and provided safe incubation zones for temperature-sensitive eggs. Feather impressions from related theropods and phylogenetic bracketing imply that Cryolophosaurus carried a dense coat of simple filamentous feathers. These proto-feathers, up to 10 centimeters long, insulated hatchlings huddled together during the nearly 3-month polar nights, conserving body heat when ambient temperatures plunged below freezing. As juveniles matured, these filaments may have developed into more complex structures along the arms and tail, enhancing display and possibly aerodynamic control during rapid turns, an evolutionary experiment long before flight emerged in avian dinosaurs. Evidence of social behaviors emerges from trackway clusters in the Hansen Formation, overlapping juvenile and adult prints. Some showing parallel stride alignments imply group movement, either family units or small hunting packs. In the longest trackways, dozens of footprints stretch across ash-laid plains, hinting at seasonal migrations to follow prey herds or to reach open water freed by geothermal springs. Young Cryolophosaurus, though vulnerable, would have learned navigation and survival tactics through these treks, mastering the harsh polar terrain before growing into the region's dominant predator. Cryolophosaurus's fossil record, tied to volcanic beds rich in silica and ash, provides exceptional chemical preservation, allowing microscopic analyses of bone collagen residues. These studies suggest elevated stable body temperatures, evidence for a high metabolic rate that fueled both insulation-dependent thermoregulation and swift growth. Juvenile bone samples, dense with vascular canals, support the notion that young Cryolophosaurus maintained near avian metabolic strategies, a critical adaptation for thriving in environments that fluctuated between daylight abundance and prolonged darkness. In embracing extreme latitudes and evolving specialized anatomy and behaviors, Cryolophosaurus stands as a testament to dinosaur resilience and innovation. From its signature crest to its seasonal growth rhythms and proto-feather insulation, every aspect of its life speaks to adaptation at the frontiers of habitability. Juveniles born into the long polar night quickly mastered the art of survival, running beneath swirling snow, huddling in geothermal refuges, and learning the icy river's seasonal secrets. Their story bridges the gap between reptilian origins and avian descendants, illuminating how dinosaurs carved dominion over a world in flux, and how even the youngest among them met the challenge of a frozen, distant dawn. Part 6. Concavenator. Concavenator corcavatus emerged from the sun-baked floodplains of early Cretaceous Spain around 130 million years ago, its tall vertebral hump rising 2 meters above a robust 2-ton frame. Discovered in the Las Hoyas fossil site in Cuenca province, this large carcharodontosaurid, aptly named humpback hunter, combined formidable size with unique anatomical quirks that set it apart from its Iberian contemporaries. Its remains, unearthed in calcareous lake deposits, preserve not only bones but also subtle traces of skin and muscle impressions, offering an unusually detailed portrait of a top predator adapted to a subtropical wetland ecosystem. The most striking feature of Concavenator is the pair of extreme vertebral spines over the hips, forming a sail-like structure unlike anything seen in other theropods of its size. Each neural spine towers over 30 centimeters high, flaring outward before tapering to a blunt tip. Early theories proposed a fat storage ridge, akin to a camel's hump, but more recent analyses suggest a display function, with the sail serving as a visual billboard during courtship or intraspecific rivalry. Juvenile specimens show smaller but still prominent spines, indicating the display structure developed early in life and grew proportionally as individuals matured. Skin impressions associated with the spine region reveal rough, pebbly scales interspersed with vertical grooves, evidence of blood vessel channels that may have thermoregulated the ridge, dissipating heat during midday activity. Surrounding areas bear patches of what appear to be primitive quill-like structures, aligning with small bumps on the forearm bones where filamentous feathers could have anchored. Though primarily scaly, these quill knobs hint that Concavenator, like its Spinosaur and Maniraptor cousins, carried simple proto-feathers on its forelimbs, possibly for display or sensory functions in hatchlings and juveniles. Concavenator's skull combined power and precision. A narrow snout tapered to a row of knife-edged teeth, slightly curved inward, each serration optimized for slicing flesh. The lower jaw's robust symphysis bears a shallow notch that may have housed a sensory organ, enabling precise detection of limb movements or water ripples when scavenging near lake margins. Bite marks on juvenile crocodilian fossils from Las Hoyas match the spacing and depth of Concavenator's teeth, revealing it preyed upon both small aquatic reptiles and juvenile dinosaurs, using its skull's leverage to crack bone and strip meat. The forelimbs tell another story of versatility. Though only half the length of the hind limbs, each arm ended in 3 strong digits, armed with recurved claws capable of slashing or grappling. Bone microstructure indicates rapid early growth in these limbs, suggesting young Concavenator quickly mastered climbing low embankments and snagging prey before growing too heavy for arboreal escapes. Powerful delta pectoral crests on the humerus reveal attachment sites for large muscles, critical for pulling struggling prey close to the body and for display gestures involving arm raising or fluttering feathery filaments. Locomotion in Concavenator balanced agility and power. Long, slender hind limbs display a slightly greater tibia length relative to the femur, indicating a cursorial capacity that allowed sustained chases along muddy banks. Metatarsal arctometasis configuration, where the middle metatarsal is sandwiched between its neighbors, added spring to each stride, reducing energy expenditure during long patrols of territory. Juvenile trackways from nearby formations showcase similar foot anatomy and smaller footprints, suggesting that even hatchlings were competent runners, fleeing danger with well-coordinated bipedal sprints. The paleo-environment of Las Hoyas shaped Concavenator's lifestyle. Seasonal wetlands teemed with fish, amphibians and early turtles, while forests of Bennettitalians and early angiosperms fringed the lakes. Fossilized root casts and charcoal layers indicate periodic wildfires followed by fresh plant growth, conditions that would concentrate prey and trigger opportunistic feeding. Concavenator's omnivorous flexibilities, inferred from occasional plant fragments found in coprolites, reveal that juveniles and adults supplemented meat with tubers and tender shoots following fires, exhibiting an adaptive diet that buffered against lean carnivorous seasons. Phylogenetic analyses place Concavenator among early diverging Carcharodontosaurians, bridging a gap between mid-early Jurassic Allosaurids and later Cretaceous giants like Giganotosaurus. Its mosaic features primitive 3-fingered hands beside advanced sail structures underscore the experimental nature of theropod evolution. The presence of quill nogs on juveniles suggests that filamentous integument was more widespread among large theropods than previously thought, hinting at a common ancestral trait, eventually lost in some lineages. Concavenator thus illuminates the evolutionary roots of feathers and display structures long before the dawn of birds. Concavenator's blend of anatomical innovations, ranging from its hip sail to its quilled forearms, from precise sensory adaptations to explosive locomotion, highlights the dynamic evolutionary landscape of the early Cretaceous. In the bones of its hatchlings, juveniles and adults, each ridge, groove and filament stem tells a story of adaptation to shifting climates, emerging ecosystems, and the relentless arms race between predator and prey. Through the lens of this polar-bordered predator, the saga of dinosaur evolution continues to unfold, revealing that even giants once wore the tender forms of toddlers, shaped by ancient forces that still echo in the birds and beasts of today. Part 7. Monolophosaurus. Monolophosaurus jungi patrolled the floodplain forests of the Middle Jurassic Yonga Basin around 165 million years ago, its single vertically extended nasal crest rising prominently above a skull, nearly a meter long. Measuring roughly 6 meters in length and weighing close to half a ton, this medium-sized theropod combined agility with a unique cranial ornament that hints at complex social behaviors. The discovery of nearly complete skeletons in the Longdong quarry preserved details of bone structure, muscular attachments, and even patches of skin impressions, allowing an unusually rich reconstruction of both adult and juvenile anatomy. The defining crest of Monolophosaurus was formed by paired nasal bones fused into a tall, blade-like structure that swept back over the snout. Rather than a fragile display ornament, the robust bone architecture suggests functions beyond mere signaling. Vascular grooves along its surface hint at a thermoregulatory role, with blood flowing through channels to dissipate heat during the scorching younger summers. In juvenile specimens, smaller incipient crests indicate that crest development began early, perhaps as a social badge among siblings, aiding in individual recognition and hierarchy formation within family groups. Skull anatomy beneath the crest reveals a powerful feeding machine. Forward-curving premaxillary teeth grasp prey, while deeper maxillary teeth, serrated and blade-like, sheared flesh with a scissor-like action. Subadult jaw bones show wear consistent with both predation and occasional scavenging, as tooth marks on large sauropod bone fragments match Monolophosaurus tooth spacing. Its wide gape and reinforced lower jaw joint allowed the animal, hatchlings and juveniles included, to handle both active prey and carrion, making it a versatile feeder in a competitive ecosystem. Forelimbs of Monolophosaurus combined strength and dexterity. Each arm bore 3 functional fingers tipped with recurved claws, backed by pronounced muscle attachment scars on the humerus, indicating powerful flexion. Wear patterns on claws suggest use in both prey capture and intraspecific combat, perhaps jostling for mates or territory. Juvenile arm bones, though smaller, exhibit the same proportions and robust attachments, implying that young Monolophosaurus practiced wrestling and grasping behaviors long before reaching adult size, honing the skills needed for successful hunting. Locomotor adaptations reveal a creature optimized for pursuit. A tibia longer than the femur and slender metatarsals support a digitigrade foot, poised for rapid acceleration across firm, sandy floodplains. Tracks attributed to small Monolophosaurs show narrow-gauge prints with shallow depth, indicating lightweight, swift strides. Juveniles, lighter still, likely achieved even greater relative speeds, using bursts of sprinting to flush out prey or evade larger predators such as the crocodile, relative younger Suchus. Agile movement, paired with feather-like integument inferred from phylogenetic bracketing, would have provided both insulation and aerodynamic stability during high-speed turns. The paleo-environment of Monolophosaurus was a patchwork of braided rivers, seasonal lakes, and fern-draped woodlands. Conifers and horsetails thrived alongside lakeshore lagoons, attracting herbivorous dinosaurs whose juveniles offered abundant prey for opportunistic theropods. Fossilized mass death assemblages suggest that seasonal droughts concentrated animals at dwindling water sources, creating hunting hotspots for Monolophosaurus family groups. Juveniles likely learned to navigate these risky zones under the guidance of adults, mastering the ebb and flow of resources that governed life in the Middle Jurassic. Growth rings in bone cross-sections reveal rapid juvenile development, with woven fibered bone indicating high metabolic rates and quick size gain during early life. As Monolophosaurus matured, lamellar bone deposition patterns signaled moderated growth tied to seasonal resource availability. These ontogenetic shifts mirror patterns seen in modern endotherms, suggesting that juvenile Monolophosaurus maintained elevated body temperatures and sustained activity levels to support continuous growth, even through relatively cool polar winters experienced by higher latitude populations. The singular nasal crest, once thought unique, finds echoes in evolutionary experiments among other theropod lineages, but Monolophosaurus's version stands out for both its size and early onset. Juvenile crests, though modest, point to a strong genetic program driving ornamentation from hatching onward. Whether used in courtship displays, threat posturing, or species recognition, the crest underscores a social complexity that parallels modern birds. Its development from a small ridge in hatchlings to a tall sail in adults tells a story of deep evolutionary investment in visual signaling. Monolophosaurus jungi exemplifies the balance of form and function in early theropods. A hunting body honed for speed, arms built for grasping, and an extraordinary crest that blended display, temperature control, and social communication. From the lines of its juvenile bone growth to the texture of its skin impressions, every fossil fragment paints a portrait of a predator finely tuned to the challenges of its time and place. In its dynamic anatomy and vivid ecological context, Monolophosaurus stands as a testament to the innovative spirit of dinosaur evolution, a spirit that thrived in the shifting landscapes of the Jurassic world. Part 8. Marsiacosaurus. Marsiacosaurus knopfleri, a small theropod barely 2 meters long and weighing less than 30 kilograms, prowled the coastal floodplains of late Cretaceous Madagascar around 70 million years ago. Its most arresting feature was the forward-projecting fang-like teeth at the front of its lower jaw, an adaptation unparalleled among theropods. These curved needle-like teeth likely hooked slippery prey, such as fish and crustaceans from shallow tidal pools. Even hatchlings, judging by diminutive juvenile jaw fragments, possessed these unusual teeth, indicating that specialized feeding strategies were imprinted from the moment of hatching. Beyond its unique dentition, Marsiacosaurus exhibited a lightweight, gracile build. Long, slender hind limbs with an arctometasis foot structure enabled swift, agile movement across sandy shorelines and muddy estuaries. Juvenile trackways preserved tiny, narrow-gauge footprints with prominent claw scrapes, suggesting young Marsiacosaurus could sprint with surprising speed. Their tails, stiffened by elongated chevrons, provided balance during rapid turns, critical when darting after small prey or evading larger predators like the abelosaurid Marsiungosaurus that shared their habitat. Forelimb anatomy in Marsiacosaurus retained primitive theropod features, 3 functional fingers tipped by recurved claws, each supported by robust muscle attachment sites. Microscopic analysis of juvenile forelimbs reveals thick cortical bone in the humerus, indicating strong arm muscles even in the smallest individuals. These capabilities suggest that young Marsiacosaurus used their hands not only for prey manipulation and digging in soft sediment for crustaceans, but also for climbing vegetated embankments during sudden monsoonal floods. The nasal region of Marsiacosaurus housed enlarged olfactory bulbs, inferred from the shape of its brain case, pointing to a keen sense of smell. Hatchlings likely use scent to track insect nests or decaying fish carcasses along the shoreline. Osteological evidence of well-developed olfactory nerves in juveniles underscores how sensory acuity drove early foraging success. Complemented by stereoscopic vision indicated by forward-facing eye sockets, young Marsiacosaurus combined smell and sight to pinpoint elusive prey in dim, brushy terrain. Bone histology of juvenile specimens reveals rapid early growth, with bundles of woven fibered bone and densely branching vascular canals signaling high metabolic rates. Growth ring patterns appear only after the first year, suggesting uninterrupted feeding and fast size gain in initial stages. This swift growth would have helped hatchlings quickly outgrow vulnerable predator size windows. By age 2, juveniles matched the weight of modern large eagles, ready to tackle aquatic prey or small vertebrates with fully developed fangs. Paleo-environmental data from the Mavarano Formation sketches a mosaic of seasonal rivers, floodplain lakes, and patches of conifer groves. Carbon isotope studies of Masiakasaurus bones indicate a diet incorporating both marine and terrestrial resources. Juvenile individuals consumed abundant crustaceans in wet seasons and shifted to terrestrial insects and small vertebrates during drought. This dietary flexibility, inherited from hatchling scavenging behaviors, buffered populations against seasonal resource fluctuations in a climate marked by alternating monsoon rains and dry spells. Social behavior in Masiakasaurus is hinted at by bone bed discoveries preserving multiple juvenile individuals together. These clusters, some containing 8 to 10 subadults, suggested creche-like groupings where young dinosaurs foraged and sheltered collectively. Group living among juveniles would have reduced predation risk, as coordinated vigilance and escape behaviors enhance survival odds. Shared feeding grounds along river margins may have fostered cooperation in locating and stripping ephemeral food sources, such as fish stranded by receding waters. Phylogenetic analyses nest Masiakasaurus within Noasauridae, a group marked by small body size and unusual feeding adaptations. Its specialized dentition and coastal lifestyle underscore the ecological experimentation that characterized many Gondwanan theropods. The presence of its distinctive teeth in hatchlings suggests these feeding adaptations were not a late-life innovation, but a core feature of its life history, guiding foraging strategies from first steps to adult dominance over shoreline prey. Masiakasaurus knopfleri stands as a testament to the adaptability of young dinosaurs in challenging environments. From its needle-like hatchling teeth to its sprinting juveniles and sensory-rich skull, every feature speaks to a life shaped by tidal rhythms and predator-prey dynamics in ancient Madagascar. Its story illuminates how early dietary specialization and rapid growth enabled small theropods to thrive on island ecosystems, leaving a fossil legacy that continues to inform our understanding of dinosaurian resilience and innovation. Part 9. Pelecanimimus. Pelecanimimus polyodon glided through the early Cretaceous skies of what is now Spain, not as a flyer but as a marvel of convergent evolution, its name translating to pelican mimic for a throat pouch and abundant teeth. Discovered in the Las Hoyas locality of Cuenca province, this unusual ornithomimosaur reached lengths of nearly 4 meters, yet weighed only about 120 kilograms. Its most astonishing feature, over 200 slender conical teeth, lining both jaws far more than any other member of its family. Even the smallest juveniles possessed a full complement of these fish-catching fangs, suggesting that specialized feeding on small aquatic prey was hardwired from their first days out of the egg. The throat pouch of Pelecanimimus remains enigmatic, inferred from a pronounced depression in the lower jaw and delicate bony ridges along the mandible margins. This pouch likely seated beneath a thin skin membrane, forming a temporary reservoir for slippery prey such as small fish, amphibians or crustaceans. Juvenile skeletons show the same mandible grooves, indicating their hatchlings too were born with this unique adaptation. By scooping up water-bound prey and draining excess liquid, These young dinosaurs could exploit shoreline feeding grounds inaccessible to many competitors, granting them an ecological niche along rivers and lake shores. Scientifically, the abundance of teeth in Pelecanimimmus challenges the toothless stereotype of ornithomimosaurs. While later relatives exchanged teeth for beaks and gizzard stones, Pelecanimimmus retained its dental weaponry, pointing to a transitional feeding strategy. Its slender, peg-like teeth were ideal for grasping small, agile prey before nascent gizzard action ground tougher material. Wear patterns on juvenile teeth show microfractures, consistent with repeated contact against scales and exoskeletons, while the pointed morphology prevented rapid tooth wear. A rapid tooth replacement system, indicated by developing tooth buds in jaw fossils, ensured hatchlings and young dinosaurs always boasted sharp fangs for hunting. Locomotion in Pelecanimimmus combined the grace of a modern shorebird with the power of a small theropod. Its long, slender hind limbs ended in narrow, three-toed feet, well suited for quick wading through shallow water or sprinting across muddy flats. Trackways attributed to juvenile individuals reveal a digitigrade stance with sharp claw impressions, reflecting both stability on wet substrates and an ability to pivot swiftly when chasing darting fish. A stiffened tail vertebrae network provided dynamic counterbalance during rapid turns, helping hatchlings evade larger predators or leap over sudden water channels. Forelimbs of Pelecanimimmus remained relatively primitive among ornithomimosaurs, each ending in three-clawed fingers capable of grasping slippery prey. Muscle scars on the ulna and radius indicate that even young individuals had strong flexor muscles, essential for gripping struggling fish or amphibians. Microscopic analysis of juvenile forelimb cross-sections displays dense cortical bone, a sign of vigorous muscular development that enabled rapid strikes and quick retrievals of prey items. In juveniles, small pits on the hand bones suggest attachment sites for fleshy pads or keratinous sheaths, enhancing grip and preventing abrasion in wet conditions. The paleo environment of Las Hoyas offered a tapestry of freshwater lagoons, marshy reed beds, and volcanic ash-blanketed plains. Fossilized plant remains, conifers, horsetails, and early flowering plants indicate a warm, humid climate with seasonal rains. Invertebrate fossils, including shrimp and aquatic insects, abound in the same layers as Pelecanimimmus bones, painting a picture of abundant food resources. Hatchling Pelecanimimids likely fed on crustaceans washed into shallow pools during heavy rains, while subadults transition to include small vertebrates, larval amphibians, and juvenile fish, expanding their dietary range as their hunting skills and jaw strength grew. Growth rings in bone cross-sections reveal that juvenile Pelecanimimmus experienced rapid early growth. The woven fibered bone tissue and densely packed vascular canals indicate high metabolic rates, necessary for developing the specialized dental and musculoskeletal features that define their ecological niche. Lines of arrested growth appear only after the first year, suggesting that initial development proceeded continuously, fueled by abundant aquatic prey and parental protection within nesting colonies. This growth strategy, consistent early acceleration, followed by moderated maturation, mirrors patterns seen in modern birds and mammals, highlighting a deep evolutionary convergence in life history tactics. Pelecanimimmus occupies a pivotal place in ornithomimosaur evolution, illustrating a transitional stage between fully toothed early forms and later toothless beaked giants. Its combination of dental specialization, throat pouch innovation, and agile locomotion underscores the experimental nature of theropod evolution in the early Cretaceous. By preserving these features in juvenile specimens, The fossil record reveals that unique feeding strategies were not late-life modifications, but integrated from hatching onward. In every fossilized tooth and bone impression lies a story of adaptation, of a small predator sculpted by riverside ecology, destined to leave a legacy in the lineage that would one day give rise to modern birds. Part 10. Incisivosaurus. Incisivosaurus gauthieri stalked early Cretaceous undergrowth some 125 million years ago, its skull crowned by ever-growing rodent-like incisors that defined its name. At just over a meter in length and weighing under 10 kilograms, this diminutive oviraptorosaur blended herbivorous specializations with theropod agility. Unearthed in China's Yixian Formation, nearly complete skeletons preserve exquisitely detailed jaws, showing a pair of elongated blade-shaped front teeth, a remarkable adaptation among dinosaurs. Even the smallest juveniles present fully formed incisors, indicating that specialized feeding strategies emerged at hatching, guiding these hatchlings into the leafy niches of a vibrant gehole ecosystem. The beak of Incisivosaurus, flanked by its namesake incisors, was short and edentulous behind the front teeth, suggesting a two-phase feeding process. Hatchlings likely snipped soft shoots and young leaves with their prominent incisors before transferring vegetation to the rear beak for further cropping. Microwear on juvenile incisors reveals fine striations consistent with shearing plant fibers, while wear facets at the beak's edge hint at repetitive gnawing motions. This dual-stage system allowed Incisivosaurus young to exploit a range of plant matter, from tender horsetail shoots to tougher ginkgo leaves, without competing directly with contemporaneous herbivores possessing simpler dentitions. Forelimb anatomy underscores a blend of precision and power. Each hand bore 3 dexterous fingers tipped by modest claws, supported by robust muscle attachment scars on the humerus. These features enabled hatchlings to grasp and manipulate branches, plucking buds and berries at will. Detailed analysis of juvenile forelimb cross-sections shows dense cortical bone, indicative of early sustained use. Young Incisivosaurus were already adept foragers at just weeks old. Their forelimbs also likely assisted in digging through soft floodplain soils for underground roots or tubers, adding another dimension to their versatile diet. Hind limbs reveal a creature built for swift, economical locomotion. Long tibiae and fused metatarsals form a digitigrade posture, optimized for striding across varied terrain, from muddy forest floors to firm lake margins. Juvenile trackways, small and narrow gauge, display a consistent stride pattern with minimal toe splay, clear evidence of efficient energy-saving gaits. This rapid locomotor ability allowed hatchlings to follow cautious circuits through dense underbrush, escaping predators such as small theropods or early mammals, while scouting for the juiciest foliage. The J-hole biotas, lakes and wooded lowlands provided a rich backdrop for Incisivosaurus. Fossilized ginkgo, conifer and fern imprints reveal a forest teeming with food sources. Seasonal volcanic ashfall periodically renewed these floodplains, entombing entire communities of plants and animals in moments, a tragic boon for paleontologists, preserving even the tiniest hatchling bones. Juvenile Incisivosaurus fossils often appear alongside dinosaur nests and young mammals, suggesting they shared nursery grounds where lush new shoots sprouted in nutrient-rich soils, creating verdant playgrounds for emerging herbivores. Bone histology unlocks the secrets of rapid early growth. Thin sectioned limb bones exhibit thick layers of woven fibered bone, indicating accelerated cell proliferation, essential for swift size gain in vulnerable hatchlings. Vascular canal density peaks in the first year, tapering off as subadults transition to lamellar bone deposition. Growth ring analysis places the onset of slowed growth at around 2 years of age, aligning with dental wear changes that suggest a dietary shift toward tougher vegetation. This growth trajectory from rapid juvenile expansion to more measured adult maturation balanced predation avoidance with the demands of feeding specialization. Integumentary evidence from related oviraptorosaurs implies that Incisivosaurus hatchlings wore a fine coat of downy filaments. Though direct feather impressions remain elusive for this genus, phylogenetic bracketing with closely related taxa reveals that filamentous coverings were ancestral traits among canagnophoid theropods. These proto-feathers provided insulation in cooler seasonal temperatures and may have served early display functions. Tiny juveniles likely flicked downy tufts during social interactions in nursery colonies, creating flickering patterns of light and shadow beneath the forest canopy. Social dynamics in Incisivosaurus remain speculative but compelling. The frequent discovery of multiple juvenile skeletons in close proximity suggests potential creche behavior, where young individuals forage together under the watchful guidance of adults. Such communal nurseries would have amplified learning opportunities, novice foragers observing each other refine gnawing techniques on various plant species. Group living also heightened vigilance against predators, as many pairs of eyes and noses could sniff out danger more effectively than a lone hatchling navigating the underbrush. Incisivosaurus stands as a testament to the innovative adaptations that allowed some dinosaurs to diverge from strict carnivory. Its specialized dentition, bimanual foraging capabilities, and probable filamentous insulation illustrate a multifaceted approach to survival. From the earliest days of its hatchlings' lives, every anatomical feature optimized their chances in a world of shifting resources and lurking threats. In the slender curve of a juvenile dentary and the polished wear of a tiny beak, one hears the echoes of an evolutionary journey, one that sowed the seeds of dinosaurian diversity and resonated through the Cretaceous woodlands of prehistoric China. Part 11. ENQ Orbeosaurus. Enquwebosaurus thwazi roamed the early Cretaceous floodplains of South Africa's Kirkwood Formation roughly 132 million years ago, a small theropod scarcely a meter long and barely 2 kilograms in weight. Its remains, the first articulated coelurosaur discovered in Gondwana, were excavated near a river channel, preserved within fine silts that once draped an ever-changing river landscape. The genus name honors the local Xhosa region, while its species name, thwazi meaning fast runner, reflects its slender build and likely high-speed pursuits. As the oldest known African coelurosaur, Enquwebosaurus bridges a gap in how these bird-line dinosaurs dispersed across ancient continents. Despite its diminutive size, Enquwebosaurus bore a lightly built skull whose exact shape remains partially conjectural. Only fragments of its cranium have survived. Paleontologists infer a long, tapered snout with reduced, unserrated teeth lining both jaws. These peg-like teeth hint at an omnivorous diet, where young Enquwebosaurus feasted on insects, small vertebrates and tender plant matter. Juvenile jaw fragments show the same tooth reduction and shape, indicating that dental simplification guided their early feeding strategies from the moment they hatched. The forelimbs of Enquwebosaurus reveal 3 functional fingers, the first partially opposable and ending in a recurved claw suited for grasping. Muscle attachment sites on the humerus and ulna indicate strong flexor tendons, enabling hatchlings to manipulate food items directly, snatching insects from bark or uprooting small tubers. Microscopic analysis of juvenile forelimb bones displays dense cortical tissue, signifying rapid early use and suggesting that hatchlings were active foragers rather than passive nest dependents. Hind limbs of Encobosaurus were optimized for speed. A tibia slightly longer than the femur, combined with a pinched central metatarsal, produced an elastic spring-like stride. Juvenile trackways preserve narrow gauge, three-toed prints with claw scrapes, demonstrating that young runners could achieve bursts of speed to evade larger predators or pursue fleet prey. Gastroliths found in association with the type specimen suggest that Encobosaurus employed a mixed feeding strategy. These small stones in the belly would have ground plant matter, implying that young dinosaurs supplemented their insectivory with fibrous vegetation. This dual digestive toolkit provided a survival edge in the variable Kirkwood ecosystem, where seasonal rains alternated between lush plant growth and parched riverbanks. Bone histology offers a window into growth rates. Thin sections of juvenile femora reveal woven fibered bone and densely branching vascular canals, signaling rapid early growth. Lines of arrested growth appear only after the first year, indicating that hatchlings grew continuously through infancy before settling into a more moderate seasonal growth pattern, a life history strategy mirroring modern endotherms. The paleo-environment of the Kirkwood Formation was a mosaic of meandering rivers, seasonal swamps, and fern-draped wetlands under a warm monsoonal climate. Plant fossils, conifers, water ferns, and early flowering plants abound alongside invertebrate remains such as freshwater shrimp and insect larvae. Juvenile Encubosaurus likely foraged along water margins, using keen senses to locate insect swarms and small amphibians trapped in drying puddles, exploiting microhabitats inaccessible to larger dinosaurs. Social behavior remains speculative, but fossil assemblages hint that juvenile Encubosaurus may have roamed in small sibling groups. Multiple subadult specimens found in close proximity suggest communal foraging or shared nesting sites. Group living would have enhanced vigilance against predators and facilitated social learning. Young dinosaurs observing one another, refining foraging techniques. As the basal most known African member of its group, Encubosaurus reshaped our understanding of coelurosaur evolution in Gondwana. Its combination of primitive teeth, grasping hands, and cursorial hind limbs underscores the experimental phase of this lineage. By preserving these unique traits in hatchlings and juveniles, Encubosaurus reveals that dietary and locomotor specializations were established from the very first days of life, guiding these swift dinosaurs across the shifting landscapes of the early Cretaceous South. Part 12. Agilosaurus. Agilosaurus lauda bacchi darted through the undergrowth of southwestern China's Jurassic forests. Some 168 million years ago, its name, meaning agile lizard, aptly describing a creature barely 2 meters long yet remarkably swift. Preserved in the lower Shaximau Formation's lacustrine mudstones, its nearly complete skeletons reveal a small, bipedal ornithischian equipped with powerful hind limbs and a flexible tail, perfectly adapted for life among cycads, horsetails, and ginkgos. Hatchlings and juveniles of Agilosaurus, judging by smaller associated specimens, already bore the hallmarks of their species: a slender neck, broad beak, and long, slender toes that left distinctive three-toed impressions along ancient shorelines. A delicate skull capped Agilosaurus's agile form, featuring a pointed snout and a toothless beak ideal for cropping tender vegetation. Behind the beak, slender leaf-shaped teeth alternated with spatulate cheek teeth, creating a nuanced triturating surface for slicing and grinding plant matter. Microwear studies on juvenile teeth reveal fine scratches aligned parallel to the tooth-long axis, indicating feeding on fibrous fern fronds and horsetail shoots during early growth stages. As Ankylosaurus matured, wear facets broadened and deepened, reflecting a shift to tougher cycads and low-lying conifers, mirroring dietary transitions seen in modern herbivorous mammals. The forelimbs of Ankylosaurus, though shorter than the hind limbs, retained grasping capabilities. Each hand bore 4 fingers, the first 3 terminating in small curved claws that likely aided juveniles in pulling down branches or digging for subterranean rhizomes. Strong muscle attachment sites on the humerus and ulna suggest vigorous daily use. Histological sections of juvenile arm bones show dense cortical deposition, indicating that young Ankylosaurus actively manipulated food items soon after hatching. This manual dexterity offered an early advantage in exploiting diverse plant resources within the cluttered Jurassic understory. Hind limb morphology underscores the agile in Ankylosaurus. A tibia slightly longer than the femur and a narrow, elongate metatarsus formed a digitigrade foot poised for rapid acceleration. Trackways attributed to juvenile Ankylosaurus display narrow-gauge, 3-toed prints with pronounced claw marks, evidence of quick, bounding strides across soft sediment. The stiffened tail, reinforced by elongated chevrons, acted as a dynamic counterbalance, enabling nimble turns when evading theropod predators or darting between dense vegetation in search of the ripest foliage. Ankylosaurus occupied a seasonally wet environment where braided rivers and shallow lakes alternated with fern-choked floodplains. Plant fossils, conifers, horsetails, and primitive angiosperms reveal lush growth in warm, humid climates, punctuated by monsoonal rains. Juvenile Ankylosaurus likely foraged in mixed species herds, taking advantage of disturbances created by larger herbivores. These herds offered both safety in numbers and collective knowledge of changing food patches, as older juveniles guided their younger counterparts toward nutrient-rich new shoots and fern clusters. Bone histology provides insight into growth dynamics. Sections of juvenile femora exhibit thick, woven fibered bone and densely packed vascular canals, indicators of rapid early growth rates necessary to outpace predation vulnerability. Lines of arrested growth appear only in subadult specimens, marking seasonal slowdowns as young dinosaurs approached half their adult size. This biphasic growth strategy, a swift initial surge followed by moderated maturation, mirrors that of many modern endothermic animals, suggesting that Ankylosaurus maintained elevated metabolic rates throughout its early development. Skin impressions associated with adult and juvenile fossils capture a fine mosaic of scales covering much of the body, interspersed with small patches of filamentous integument along the neck and back. These proto-feasing structures, though simple in form, likely provided insulation during cooler nights and may have served minor display functions among juveniles in nursery groups. The combination of scaly armor and filamentous warmth underscores a dual strategy: durable protection against abrasive plants and volcanic grit, paired with thermal regulation in a habitat prone to nightly temperature drops. Social behavior in Ankylosaurus remains largely inferred, but the abundance of juvenile remains discovered together hints at possible creche-like nurseries. Small groups of similarly sized bones suggest that hatchlings and young juveniles congregated near nesting sites, foraging together under the watchful presence of larger kin. Such associations would have bolstered collective defense, a dozen pairs of eyes detecting predators more effectively than a lone hatchling, and facilitated social learning as juveniles observed one another, refine foraging and evasion tactics. Agilosaurus louderbaci stands as a testament to the significance of early growth and adaptability in dinosaur evolution. From its finely serrated juvenile teeth to its rapid stride footprints pressed into Jurassic mud, this nimble herbivore exemplifies a lineage that mastered plant-based diets and agile locomotion long before the rise of later ornithischian giants. In each bone and footprint remains the echo of small dinosaurs navigating ancient floodplains with grace and speed, weaving the threads of survival that would one day cloak the planet in the verdant tapestry of life. Part 13. Gasosaurus. Gasosaurus constructus thundered along the steamy floodplains of early Jurassic Sichuan roughly 184 million years ago, its name meaning gasoline lizard, a nod to its discovery near a fuel refinery in Zhejiang. At 6 to 7 meters long and weighing approximately half a ton, this large theropod occupied apex predator status long before Allosaurus and its kin roamed. Juvenile specimens, though only a fraction of adult size, display the same formidable anatomy, a deep skull bristling with serrated teeth, powerful hind limbs built for bursts of speed, and robust forelimbs tipped with curving claws. Even in their first year, young Gasosaurus were born warriors, equipped for the perilous hunt. The skull of Gasosaurus combined finesse and force. Its narrow snout housed closely spaced, blade-like teeth, each serration honed for slicing through flesh. The lower jaw's symphysis curved upward, creating a powerful beak that helped wrest struggling prey. Juvenile dentaries mirror this form in miniature, indicating hatchlings were ready to dispatch small vertebrates and carrion upon first forays from the nest. Bite mark analyses on early sauropodomorph bones reveal tooth impressions matching juvenile serration spacing, proving that young Gasosaurus practiced their predatory skills long before reaching full maturity. Forelimb anatomy in Gasosaurus stands out among early theropods. A pronounced delta pectoral crest on the humerus marks attachment for strong forearm muscles, enabling rapid, slashing strikes with three-fingered hands. Each digit ended in a sickle-shaped claw, ideal for raking flanks or grappling prey. Juvenile limb bones show similar muscle scar patterns, suggesting that young Gasosaurus learned to grapple and immobilize prey almost immediately. This forelimb strength complemented their dental arsenal, forming a dual attack system that eclipsed many contemporaneous carnivores. Hind limb proportions reveal a creature built for both pursuit and stability. A femur, only slightly shorter than the tibia, coupled with an arctometarsalian foot, produced an energy-efficient, digitigrade gait suitable for long patrols along riverbanks. Trackways from the Dashanpu quarry record, juvenile footprints with stride lengths implying speeds up to 20 kilometers per hour, remarkable for one still growing its vertebrae. The stiffened tail, supported by elongated chevrons, delivered counterbalance during high-speed turns, allowing hatchlings to weave through vegetation and ambush unsuspecting prey. The early Jurassic environment of Sichuan featured meandering waterways, seasonal lakes and lush cycads and horsetails. Fossilized ginkgo leaves and bennettitalians attest to warm, humid climates, punctuated by monsoonal deluges. Juvenile Gasosaurus likely hunted along the edges of these water bodies, using keen binocular vision inferred from forward-facing eye sockets to spot amphibians and small reptiles splashing in shallows. Their combination of stealth and speed, creeping close under ferns before explosive lunges, made them effective predators from the earliest days of life. Bone histology uncovers rapid early growth in Gasosaurus. Cross-sections of juvenile femora reveal dense networks of vascular canals within woven fibered bone, signaling high metabolic rates necessary for swift size gain. Lines of arrested growth appear only in subadult specimens, indicating that hatchlings and young juveniles grew almost without pause during their first 2 years. This explosive growth spurt allowed them to outgrow the most dangerous size classes preyed upon by larger theropods, such as Tyrannosaurus, reinforcing the selective advantage of rapid juvenile development. Skin impressions from related tetanoran theropods and phylogenetic inference suggest that Gasosaurus bore simple filamentous proto-feathers, at least in its juvenile stages. These down-like filaments provided insulation in cooler volcanic highlands and may have served display functions within sibling groups. Patchy filament distribution, concentrated along the neck and forearms, would have lent juvenile Gasosaurus a tousled primitive plumage, camouflaging them among ferns and cycads, while signaling age and social rank within growing broods. Social interactions among juvenile Gasosaurus likely centered on creche-like groupings. Multiple young specimens found in close proximity at bonebed, 13 of Dashampu, hint at communal nesting or early life herding. Group living provided safety in numbers. Coordinated teaching of hunting techniques and alarm calls would have improved success rates. As juveniles honed their predatory skills, sibling groups may have learned cooperative tactics, surrounding and isolating small prey, an embryonic precursor to pack hunting behaviors later seen in advanced theropods. Gasosaurus constructus stands as a testament to the early experimentation of large theropod form and function. From the serrated teeth of its hatchlings to the lithe stride of its growing juveniles, every feature underscores the evolutionary drive toward efficient predation. In the mud, soft footprints and ashen sediments of Dashampu, the legacy of Gasosaurus endures, revealing how even the youngest members of Earth's ruling predators mastered the art of the hunt, shaping a lineage that would dominate for over 100 million years. Part 14. Dilong. Dilong paradoxus, named Emperor Dragon, stalked the damp woodlands of early Cretaceous, liaoning around 127 million years ago, its slender frame measuring nearly 2 meters in length and weighing under 15 kilograms. The discovery of this basal tyrannosauroid in fine volcanic ash deposits of the Yixian Formation unveiled the earliest evidence of feathers in the tyrant dinosaur lineage. Juvenile specimens, preserved with delicate integumentary filaments, reveal that even the tiniest hatchlings emerged from their eggs clad in downy feathers, an adaptation for insulation in the region's temperate climate. Feather impressions from Dilong include simple, hair-like filaments up to several centimeters long, covering the neck, back, and tail base. These proto-feathers formed a continuous insulating layer, vital for thermoregulation amid seasonal fluctuations that brought cool nights and rainy days. Juveniles display the same filament patterns as subadults, indicating that insulation functioned from the first days of life, permitting quick activity and growth despite cooler ambient temperatures. This early feathering foreshadows the more complex plumage seen in later tyrannosauroids. The skull of Dilong blends primitive and derived features. A slender snout lined with small serrated teeth suggests an opportunistic diet. Young Dilong likely consumed insects and small vertebrates before transitioning to larger prey. Tooth replacement patterns in juvenile jaws reveal rapid turnover, ensuring sharp fangs for dispatching fast-moving lizards and early mammals in densely vegetated underbrush. Delicate cranial crests, subtle ridges above the orbits, may have served display functions among siblings, enabling kin recognition during communal nesting. Forelimbs in Dilong retained 3 functional fingers tipped with recurved claws, a trait lost in later descendants like Tyrannosaurus rex. Robust muscle scars on juvenile humeri and ulli attest to early manual dexterity, enabling hatchlings to grasp prey or climb low branches. This suggests that young Dilong exploited both ground and arboreal niches, snatching nestling birds or eggs from hollow logs. The combination of climbing ability and swift feet made them versatile hunters in the dynamic Yixian ecosystem. Hind limb proportions underscored Dilong's agility, a tibia longer than the femur and a narrow, elongate metatarsus formed an energy-efficient, digitigrade gait. Juvenile trackways show narrow-gauge prints with clear claw impressions, reflecting speedy locomotion across ash-laden floodplains. Keen binocular vision inferred from forward-facing eye sockets would have aided hatchlings in detecting prey among dense ferns and cycads, while a stiff feathered tail provided balance during rapid turns and jumps. The early Cretaceous environment of Dilong featured volcanic lakes, pine forests, and pockets of bamboo-like horsetails. Fossilized fish and amphibians in lake beds suggest hatchlings foraged along shores, scooping prey from water's edge. Juvenile stomach content evidence, tiny fish scales and insect exoskeleton fragments, confirms a diet rich in aquatic and terrestrial invertebrates, easing the transition from insectivory to carnivory. Proto-feathered hatchlings nestled among ferns relied on both stealth and speed to capture these small, fleeting meals. Bone histology reveals rapid early growth in Dilong. Juvenile limb bones exhibit thick cortexes with woven fibered bone indicative of high metabolic rates. Vascular canals supply nutrients for swift tissue deposition, enabling hatchlings to double in size within their first year. Lines of arrested growth appear only in subadults, marking seasonal slowdowns and further tying development to environmental rhythms. This growth pattern, continuous early expansion followed by moderated juvenile maturation, parallels life history strategies in modern birds. Social behavior likely centered on family units. Juvenile fossils discovered alongside slightly larger individuals imply cooperative brooding or communal foraging groups. Parental care, suggested by the nesting of multiple Dilong specimens in proximity, would have fostered skill transfer, with adults demonstrating stalking and pouncing techniques. Hatchlings, insulated by their proto-feathers and guided by agile elders, refined their hunting tactics in relative safety before venturing into solitary territory as subadults. Dilong paradoxes stands as a testament to the deep roots of feathers in the tyrannosauroid lineage and the evolutionary experiments of early coelurosaurs. From the first downy filaments on hatchlings' backs to the gracile limbs of subadults, every aspect of its biology reveals a dinosaur uniquely adapted to a world of volcanic upheaval and seasonal change. In the ash-preserved echoes of their bones, the story of agile feathered youngsters unfolds, a narrative of insulation, rapid growth, and ecological ingenuity that paved the way for the mightiest predators yet to come. Part 15. Yutyrannus. Towering over its smaller ancestors, Yutyrannus huali carved a formidable figure in the early Cretaceous of northeastern China, weighing around 1.4 metric tons and stretching nearly 9 meters in length. Despite its massive size, this predator retained a feature once thought exclusive to tiny theropods and birds' feathers. Preserved in extraordinary detail within the Liaoning province's Yixian Formation, Fossil impressions reveal long filamentous feathers covering large portions of its body. These coarse hair-like structures extended along the neck, arms, hips, and tail, suggesting comprehensive insulation even in adult specimens. The presence of feathers on such a large animal challenged long-held assumptions about the role of integumentary structures in non-avian dinosaurs. The climate of early Cretaceous Lialoning was cooler than the tropical norms of earlier Mesozoic periods, with seasonal shifts and perhaps even frost during colder months. Feathers on Yutyrannus likely served primarily to conserve body heat, especially in juveniles with higher surface area to volume ratios. In hatchlings, this need would have been even more acute. Their first feathers would have grown as a dense, downy coat, efficient at trapping warmth, while light enough not to hinder mobility. As they aged, feathers probably became coarser and longer, offering both thermoregulation and rudimentary protection from environmental elements like rain and wind. Juvenile Yutyrannus likely led lives of cautious exploration. Their size at birth is unknown, but based on related tyrannosauroids, they may have been less than a meter long, vulnerable to a variety of predators. They would have relied heavily on camouflage and parental protection to survive their early months. Feathers, particularly if patterned or colored in mottled earth tones, would have broken up their outline in forested habitats, making it harder for visual predators to detect them in the undergrowth or fern cover. Cranial development in Yutyrannus hatchlings likely emphasized forward-facing eyes and expanding olfactory regions, hinting at a strong reliance on both vision and smell. As in many coelurosaurs, their sense of smell would have been especially acute, with long olfactory lobes observed in skull endocasts. This trait, preserved from early stages, allowed even young individuals to detect carrion or track small prey across leaf litter and underbrush. Combined with high intelligence relative to many reptiles, this made juvenile Yutyrannus versatile foragers. The forelimbs of Yutyrannus, proportionally longer and more robust than those of later tyrannosaurids, suggest a degree of grasping functionality. Hatchlings may have used these limbs for balance or to manipulate prey, scavenged material, or nesting material. Their hands bore 3 fingers, and the presence of large muscle scars on the humerus in juvenile fossils implies strong, active forelimb use. As they grew, forelimbs became less essential for prey capture, reflecting a gradual transition in hunting strategies as body mass increased. Limb proportions also illuminate the locomotive capabilities of young Yutyrannus. Their longer legs and lighter build suggest high agility in early life stages. Hatchling bones, lightly built and highly vascularized, indicate rapid growth and a lifestyle dependent on frequent movement. They could likely dart through wooded terrain, weaving between trees and rocks as they pursued small prey or fled larger threats. Juvenile trackways from similar taxa show toe impressions that hint at padded, clawed feet, ideal for traction in soft forest floors. Fossil evidence suggests that Yutyrannus may have lived in social groups with multiple individuals preserved together. This opens the possibility of complex parental care. Adults could have guarded nests, regurgitated food for young, or led them to safer hunting grounds. A social structure involving extended family groups would have increased survival rates among hatchlings, especially in a climate prone to seasonal shifts and potential scarcity. Sibling interaction may also have shaped behavioral learning, from feeding strategies to social ranking. The growth rate of Yutyrannus was likely rapid in early life, similar to that of other large theropods. Bone histology reveals few lines of arrested growth in juvenile specimens, supporting a near-continuous deposition of bone tissue. This rapid size increase would have helped juveniles outgrow predators, and attain a safer size more quickly. Feathers may have been key during this growth, insulating the body to maintain the high metabolic output needed for sustained tissue production. Nutritional intake from both hunting and scavenging would have had to keep pace with this physiological demand. As an evolutionary bridge between small feathered coelurosaurs and colossal scaly tyrannosaurids, Yutyrannus redefines the image of feathered dinosaurs. Its hatchlings, fluffy, sharp-eyed and quick-footed, represent a blend of ancestral traits and forward-looking adaptations. From the downy warmth shielding them at birth to the eventual grandeur of adult feathers, these youngsters reveal a lineage in transition, one where insulation, intelligence and parental behavior form the cornerstones of survival in a dynamic, frigid world. Part 16. Rabodon. Rabodon, whose name means fluted tooth, was a stocky ground-dwelling herbivore that thrived during the late Cretaceous, between 70 and 66 million years ago. This dinosaur belonged to a group known as ornithopods, bipedal grazers, that formed an essential component of Cretaceous ecosystems. Fossils of Rabodon have been found scattered across Europe, particularly in France, Spain, and Romania, regions that were part of a sprawling archipelago at the time. With its thick limbs, strong jaws, and distinctive ridged teeth, Rabodon was built to endure rugged terrain and digest the tough plants of its time. It likely grew to lengths of 4 to 6 meters, weighing as much as a modern-day bull, and stood out among its island contemporaries by retaining a larger size, rather than evolving into a smaller form as many island species tend to do. The late Cretaceous European archipelago, shaped by high sea levels, created a unique evolutionary landscape. It was a world of scattered islands, separated by warm, shallow seas, which isolated populations and encouraged localized evolution. While many dinosaur species on these islands evolved into dwarfed forms due to limited resources, Rabodon defied the trend. Its relatively large size compared to its neighbors suggests a lack of serious herbivorous competition, possibly allowing it to dominate the niche of medium-sized browsers. It may also indicate abundant vegetation in its environment, or a physiological adaptation that made smaller sizes disadvantageous. Its ability to spread across multiple islands shows it was flexible and resilient in terms of habitat preference and food sourcing. Anatomically, Rabodon displayed a blend of primitive and derived characteristics. Its body was compact but powerful, supported by strong hind limbs that enabled it to move effectively over the rocky, uneven ground typical of many island interiors. The pelvis was wide and reinforced, anchoring large muscles for locomotion and giving it a stable gait. Although likely bipedal most of the time, it may have been able to assume a quadrupedal stance when feeding on low vegetation or moving slowly. The tail was stiffened by ossified tendons, helping with balance as it foraged or fled from threats. Unlike the more gracile hadrosaurs that came later, Rabodon carried a rugged, almost primitive body plan that emphasized strength over speed. The discovery of juvenile specimens has allowed paleontologists to better understand how Rabodon grew. Bone microstructure studies reveal that these dinosaurs experienced rapid early growth, similar to other ornithopods, which may have helped them reach a size that deterred predation. Their long bones contain growth rings, much like trees, which can show periods of slowed development, possibly during dry or cold seasons when food was scarce. These growth patterns also hint at a relatively long lifespan, possibly several decades. Interestingly, differences in bone texture between individuals suggest that males and females may have grown at different rates or matured at different times, a trait seen in many modern animals. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of Rabidon lies in its dental structure. Its teeth were tall, ridged and tightly packed, forming grinding batteries that operated like natural shears. These adaptations were ideal for slicing and pulping fibrous vegetation, such as ferns, cycads and other tough plants that blanketed the Cretaceous landscape. The enamel on the teeth was unevenly distributed, creating natural wear patterns that maintained a sharp cutting edge with constant use. Some fossilized jaws show considerable wear and even signs of tooth replacement, indicating that Rabidon's teeth were in near constant use and subject to replacement throughout its life. Rabidon's evolutionary position has been the subject of ongoing debate. At first, its anatomy seemed to place it somewhere between small-bodied iguanodonts and more advanced hadrosaurs. However, further examination has positioned it within its own distinct family, Rabidontidae, a group of basal iguanodontians unique to Europe. This lineage likely split from other ornithopods early in the Cretaceous, then followed a separate evolutionary path due to geographic isolation. The peculiar mix of primitive and specialized traits in Rabidon provides a living snapshot of how insular isolation can shape evolution in unpredictable directions, preserving traits long abandoned by mainland relatives. The fossil record of Rabidon is unusually rich for a European dinosaur, thanks to a variety of fossil beds in southern France and northeastern Spain. These sites have yielded partial skeletons, skull fragments, and isolated bones from both adult and juvenile individuals. This wide sample has allowed researchers to reconstruct its body in great detail and study its population structure. Some sites contain multiple individuals, suggesting that Rabidon may have lived in small social groups or family units, especially during juvenile stages. Alternatively, the fossils may reflect seasonal aggregations at certain feeding or watering sites, similar to behaviors seen in modern herbivores. As a frequent member of its ecosystem, Rabidon likely had to deal with various predators, including abelisaurid sauropods, such as Archovinator. Its strong limbs and solid build may have been crucial defensive assets, and juveniles especially would have been at risk. Fossil evidence suggests the occasional presence of bite marks or healed bone damage that might be linked to predator attacks or intraspecific combat. Its cryptic coloration, perhaps earth-toned for camouflage, along with social behaviors like group living, could have further helped it survive in a landscape filled with both opportunity and danger. Rabidon's extinction came as part of the broader late Cretaceous mass extinction event, likely triggered by a combination of asteroid impact, massive volcanic activity, and environmental upheaval. The changing climate and ecological collapse would have disrupted plant communities and food chains, removing the resources large herbivores like Rabidon depended on. Yet its fossil legacy remains invaluable. As one of the most complete and well-studied dinosaurs of the European late Cretaceous, Rabidon helps fill critical gaps in our understanding of how dinosaurs adapted to isolated environments and how ecosystems evolved in the final chapters of the Mesozoic. Part 17. Xenoceratops. Xenoceratops, meaning alien horned face, earned its name not for being extraterrestrial, but for its startlingly unfamiliar facial ornamentation compared to other ceratopsians. Discovered in Alberta, Canada, in strata dated to around 78 million years ago, this ceratopsid stands out as one of the oldest known members of its family in North America. While its fossils are fragmentary, mostly skull material, the recovered bones suggest a complex arrangement of horns and frills that were both defensive structures and potentially signals used for species recognition or mating displays. The creature's massive skull featured a pair of long brow horns, a short nose horn, and a distinctive frill adorned with large forward-curving spikes, creating a silhouette unlike anything else from its time. The environment Xenoceratops inhabited was part of the lush coastal lowlands of Laramidia, the western subcontinent that existed during the late Cretaceous. This region was hot and humid, with abundant plant life supported by monsoonal rains and river systems. Dinosaurs here had to coexist in densely packed ecosystems teeming with life, from hadrosaurs and ankylosaurs to tyrannosaurids and small raptors. In this prehistoric jungle, Xenoceratops would have been a browsing herbivore, likely moving in herds or social groups for protection and foraging efficiency. Its parrot-like beak and dental batteries allowed it to shear through fibrous plant material like ferns, cycads, and flowering angiosperms with ease. Despite the limited fossil material, researchers have been able to reconstruct Xenoceratops with some confidence by comparing its bones to more complete relatives like Centrosaurus and Chasmosaurus. Its skull alone may have spanned over 2 meters, making up nearly a third of its total body length, which could have reached 6 meters from beak to tail. Its robust limbs and barrel-shaped torso suggest a powerful but slow-moving animal, built more for endurance and intimidation than speed. Like many ceratopsians, it likely walked on all fours, with powerful hind limbs and slightly shorter forelimbs that allowed for a steady, plodding gait through thick vegetation and uneven terrain. The dramatic horns and frill of Xenoceratops weren't just for show. Horns in ceratopsians likely served multiple functions: defense against predators, competition among males, and possibly even thermoregulation. The frill, too, may have provided muscle attachment points for strong neck movements, protected the neck and shoulders during combat, and served as a canvas for visual display. In species where sexual dimorphism is suspected, larger or more ornate frills might have been used to signal maturity or reproductive fitness. If Xenoceratops followed this pattern, its ornamentation would have played a key role in social dynamics, both attracting mates and deterring rivals. What makes Xenoceratops particularly fascinating is its early appearance in the ceratopsid fossil record. Most well-known ceratopsians hail from slightly later in the Cretaceous, like Triceratops, which lived several million years afterward. Xenoceratops helps paleontologists understand the origins and diversification of horned dinosaurs. Its mixture of traits, some primitive, others highly derived, suggests it was part of an early radiation of ceratopsids, experimenting with different horn and frill configurations. This variety of ornamentation might have evolved rapidly as populations spread across different environments, adapting to local pressures and social behaviors. In terms of defense, Xenoceratops would have been no easy target for predators. While large carnivores like Daspletosaurus prowled the same habitats, taking on a fully grown Xenoceratops would have been a dangerous endeavor. Its horns and bony frill could cause serious injury in a fight, and herding behavior may have added another layer of protection. Juveniles would have been more vulnerable, of course, and evidence from other ceratopsids shows that young individuals often clustered together, possibly guarded by adults or staying near thick cover. The frills of younger individuals may have been less developed, growing more elaborate with age, as the need for display and defense increased. The paleogeography of North America during Xenoceratops' time reveals another clue about its significance. As sea levels rose and fell, land corridors periodically connected or isolated populations of ceratopsians. These shifts likely contributed to the rapid diversification of frill and horn shapes seen across the continent. By tracing the variations in ornamentation from different regions and time periods, scientists can track evolutionary lineages and determine how species like Xenoceratops fit into the broader Ceratopsian tree. Its features may represent a transitional stage between earlier Centrosaurians and the more flamboyantly ornamented species that followed. The name Xenoceratops reflects not only its alien-looking skull, but also its role in challenging previous assumptions about Ceratopsian evolution. Before its discovery, scientists believed that the early record of horned dinosaurs in North America was sparse and lacking in variety. Xenoceratops proved otherwise. It expanded the known diversity of early ceratopsids and hinted at a much richer and more complex evolutionary history than previously assumed. As new discoveries continue to emerge from older rock layers, more relatives of Xenoceratops may be unearthed, helping to flesh out this fascinating early chapter in the story of horned dinosaurs. Though not as famous as its later cousins, Xenoceratops has become a symbol of the hidden diversity that still lies buried in prehistoric strata. Its unusual combination of traits and relatively early appearance has made it a valuable touchstone for paleontologists revisiting other fragmentary fossils. What once seemed like isolated or anomalous bone fragments now find context in species like Xenoceratops, highlighting how even partial discoveries can reshape scientific understanding. As techniques like CT scanning and 3D modeling advance, new insights into its anatomy and behavior will likely continue to emerge, allowing this alien horned face to step more fully into the spotlight it deserves. Part 18. Zuniceratops. Zuniceratops, meaning zuni-horned face, represents a vital puzzle piece in the story of Ceratopsian evolution. Discovered in New Mexico and named after the Zuni people of the American Southwest, this dinosaur lived approximately 90 million years ago, placing it firmly in the Turonian stage of the late Cretaceous. Its temporal position is particularly significant. Zuniceratops is one of the earliest known ceratopsians to possess brow horns, bridging the gap between earlier, smaller hornless ancestors like Protoceratops and the massive horned giants like Triceratops that would emerge millions of years later. It captures a rare transitional stage where the iconic traits of ceratopsids were beginning to take shape. Unlike its more famous relatives, Zuniceratops was relatively modest in size. Estimates suggest it reached around 3 to 3.5 meters in length, roughly the size of a modern bison, and weighed between 150 to 200 kilograms. It had a lightly built frame with a long, narrow skull and large eye sockets. Its most striking features were a pair of forward-curving brow horns, already hinting at the elaborate ornamentation seen in later ceratopsians. However, it lacked a nose horn and had a relatively simple frill, free of the elaborate spikes and fenestrae seen in more derived forms. This intermediate combination of traits helps define Zuniceratops as an evolutionary bridge, not yet fully ceratopsid, but no longer primitive. The frill of Zuniceratops was an early version of the large neck shields that would later define its descendants. While not especially ornate, it still served multiple potential functions, offering modest protection to the neck and shoulders, providing surface area for muscle attachment, and likely playing a role in social signaling. Unlike the thickened, reinforced frills of later ceratopsids, Zuniceratops had a lighter frill that was probably more flexible and may have supported skin or keratinous coverings that brightened its display capabilities. If coloration played a role in communication, as is often assumed for display structures, Zuniceratops might have sported striking patterns for mate attraction or individual recognition. Its beak was sharp and well adapted for cropping low-growing vegetation, and behind it lay rows of shearing teeth, suggesting a diet of fibrous plants such as ferns, cycads, and early flowering plants. Like other ornithischians, Zuniceratops likely had a complex jaw mechanism that allowed for efficient grinding and slicing. While it lacked the full dental battery of Triceratops and its kin, its teeth and jaw musculature were more advanced than those of earlier ceratopsians. This balance of primitive and derived traits speaks to its role as a pivotal dietary experimenter, adapting to new plant communities emerging during the mid-Cretaceous floristic turnover. Behaviorally, Zuniceratops may have lived in small family groups or loose herds, offering safety in numbers as they foraged across floodplains and forest margins. The fossil record, including bone beds and trackways from similar species, suggests that even early ceratopsians may have exhibited some degree of sociality. If so, juveniles would have grown up in a structured group dynamic, learning behaviors from older individuals and relying on communal warning systems to detect threats from predators. At the time, these predators might have included mid-sized tyrannosauroids or dromaeosaurs, which would have seen Zuniceratops as accessible prey, especially the young or old. One of the most fascinating aspects of Zuniceratops is that it shows evidence of replacement teeth, a trait seen in many ornithischians. As older teeth wore down from constant grinding of tough vegetation, new ones erupted beneath them, ensuring the animal remained an efficient feeder throughout its life. This adaptation, along with the presence of a keratinous beak, allowed Zuniceratops to exploit a wide range of plant material. This flexibility in diet may have helped early ceratopsians spread across different environments, adjusting to regional differences in flora and outcompeting more specialized herbivores. Zuniceratops also offers intriguing clues about the migration and geographic spread of ceratopsians. Its discovery in North America, alongside its combination of both Asian and North American traits, suggests a faunal exchange between the two continents. During the mid-Cretaceous, intermittent land bridges may have allowed populations of ceratopsians to cross back and forth, spreading genetic diversity and evolutionary innovation. Zuniceratops may represent a lineage that originated in Asia but began radiating through western North America, seeding the diverse horned dinosaur ecosystems that would dominate the late Cretaceous. The skull of Zuniceratops is perhaps its most telling feature. Its large orbitals, narrow snout, and modest horn cores suggest a creature that was evolving toward greater complexity but had not yet committed fully to the bombastic designs of its successors. Paleontologists can track this gradual elaboration of cranial structures across millions of years, showing how evolution often builds new adaptations on top of older anatomical foundations. Zuniceratops' skull is like a blueprint in progress, functional, efficient, and preparing for something even grander. Today, Zuniceratops stands as a symbol of the evolutionary middle ground. It reminds us that dinosaurs didn't leap from primitive to advanced in a single stride. Instead, transitional species like this one reveal the nuanced step-by-step development of some of the most iconic traits in dinosaur history. As more fossils continue to surface from the American Southwest, each new bone could help clarify just how these magnificent horned creatures came to be, one innovation, one migration, and one mutation at a time. Part 19. Dracorex. Dracorex hogwartsia, with its dragon-like skull and almost mythical appearance, is one of the most visually striking and enigmatic dinosaurs ever discovered. The name itself, meaning Dragon King of Hogwarts, reflects the almost fantasy-like quality of its fossilized remains. First unveiled in the early 2000s from the Hell Creek Formation in South Dakota, Dracorex presents a spiky, flat-headed profile, unlike that of any other known dinosaur. Covered with nodules, bumps, and long hornlets, its skull looks more like medieval armor than the typical domed heads associated with its closest relatives, the pachycephalosaurs. Though it lacks the high, rounded dome that defines most pachycephalosaurs, Dracorex is still classified within that group. Ornithischian dinosaurs known for their thickened skull roofs and potential head-butting behavior. What makes Dracorex unusual is that the top of its skull is relatively flat, leading to the hypothesis that it may represent a juvenile or subadult form of another dinosaur, possibly Pachycephalosaurus itself. The long muzzle, narrow snout, and highly ornamented skull add layers of complexity to the debate about whether Dracorex is its own species or merely an earlier life stage of a better-known genus. The controversy over Dracorex's identity has become one of the most famous paleontological debates in recent decades. Some researchers suggest that Dracorex, along with the similarly flat-headed Stygimoloch, may simply represent growth stages of Pachycephalosaurus wyomingensis. According to this theory, Pachycephalosaur skulls change dramatically as individuals mature, developing thicker domes and resorbing some of their earlier spike-like features. If true, Dracorex may not be a separate species at all, but rather a window into the teenage years of a dinosaur best known for its bone-crushing headgear. Regardless of where it sits taxonomically, Dracorex offers fascinating insights into how dinosaurs may have grown and developed throughout their lives. The highly vascularized nature of pachycephalosaur skulls, especially in their younger forms, indicates rapid bone remodeling. This suggests a high degree of developmental plasticity, allowing the animals to alter their skulls' shapes and thicknesses over time, possibly in response to shifting behavioral or social needs. Young individuals may have needed spikier ornamentation for display or intimidation, while older adults developed thicker domes for physical competition. Dracorex's peculiar appearance raises interesting possibilities about its lifestyle and environment. The long, low skull, adorned with horns and knobs, may have been used to establish dominance within a social group or to ward off predators through visual intimidation. In the dense woodlands of late Cretaceous North America, elaborate head ornamentation could have served as a kind of visual signature, helping individuals recognize each other amid thick vegetation. Such features may also have played a role in sexual selection, as flashier individuals could have been more attractive mates. Though no complete skeleton of Dracorex has been found, its relatives give us clues about its likely anatomy and behavior. It was probably a bipedal herbivore, measuring roughly 3 to 4 meters in length and weighing around 90 to 120 kilograms. With strong hind limbs and a stiff tail for balance, Dracorex would have been a capable runner, well suited for darting through forests and undergrowth. Its diet likely consisted of low-growing ferns, cycads, and flowering plants, which it cropped with a parrot-like beak before processing with cheek teeth. The Hell Creek Formation, where Dracorex was discovered, paints a picture of a vibrant subtropical floodplain teeming with life. Dinosaurs like Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and Tyrannosaurus rex roamed the same ecosystem. In such a competitive environment, ornamental traits like head spikes may have helped smaller species like Dracorex stand out, either as deterrents to predators or as identifiers among their own kind. Living in the shadow of giants, Dracorex's survival may have depended as much on being seen as being avoided. Paleopathological studies of Pachycephalosaur skulls, including those of possible Dracorex specimens, have revealed lesions and healed injuries that support the idea of head-based combat. If Dracorex did participate in ritualized head clashes, it would make sense for younger individuals to exhibit a flatter skull that developed into a more rounded dome with age. Such changes could mirror behavioral shifts, with juveniles engaging in display or light sparring before adopting more physically demanding tactics as adults. These findings enrich our understanding of dinosaur social behavior beyond simple predator-prey dynamics. Whether Dracorex stands as a distinct species or not, it occupies a compelling place in paleontological discourse. Its fierce, dragon-like skull invites wonder, but its deeper significance lies in what it may tell us about growth, identity, and evolution within a major dinosaur lineage. With every fossil discovered from the Hell Creek Badlands, paleontologists inch closer to resolving the mystery of this spiked, flat-headed enigma, reminding us that the line between discovery and reinterpretation in science is rarely straight and often more fascinating because of its curves. Part 20. Orcasaurus. Orcasaurus garridoi was a predator that moved with the ruthless confidence of an animal tailored by evolution for swift surgical strikes. Discovered in Argentina's Neuquén Basin and dating to the late Cretaceous around 85 to 83 million years ago, this abelosaurid theropod was a sleek killer with a distinctly unusual anatomical profile. With a body length of about 5 to 6 meters and a relatively lightweight frame, Orcasaurus was large enough to bring down mid-sized prey, but nimble enough to avoid confrontation with the true titans of its time. Its most conspicuous trait was its forelimbs, or rather the almost comical reduction of them. These limbs were even shorter and less functional than those of its cousin Carnotaurus, bearing 4 tiny fingers fused into a paddle-like stump. Despite the near-total loss of forelimb function, Orcasaurus retained a lethal toolkit elsewhere. Its skull, although shorter and more rounded than that of many other theropods, was reinforced and muscular, lined with sharp teeth, suited for puncturing and tearing. Like many abelosaurids, it relied on its powerful neck and jaws to dispatch prey, using sudden strikes and rapid head movements rather than grappling with limbs. Its arms may have been minimized to reduce the risk of injury or entanglement during high-velocity attacks. A strange but plausible adaptation in a lineage that opted for jaw-first combat over traditional clutching and slashing techniques. The fossilized remains of Orcasaurus include an exceptionally well-preserved and nearly complete skeleton, one of the best examples of an abelosaurid ever discovered. The specimen has provided critical insight into this enigmatic group of South American predators. From the detail in its vertebrae to the curvature of its tail, every inch of Orcasaurus seems designed for balance and speed. Its long, muscular hind limbs and stiffened tail acted as a counterweight and rudder, suggesting a predator that used burst movement to ambush prey rather than engage in prolonged chases. Its build was ideal for maneuvering through the patchy forests and open floodplains of Cretaceous Patagonia. The evolutionary path that led to Orcasaurus and its kin is among the most fascinating in the dinosaur lineage. Abelosaurids diverged sharply from their northern hemisphere counterparts, the Tyrannosaurids, not just in limb reduction, but in cranial ornamentation and skull structure. Whereas tyrannosaurs evolved enormous heads and crushing bite forces, abelosaurids developed shorter, more heavily ornamented skulls and relatively weaker bites. Orcasaurus likely hunted smaller or more agile prey, perhaps young sauropods, hadrosaurs, or even reptiles and early mammals, relying on speed and precision rather than brute force. This difference hints at the ecological divergence of Gondwanan and Laurasian predator-prey dynamics. In terms of behavior, Orcosaurus was likely a solitary hunter. Unlike pack-hunting theories proposed for dromaeosaurs, no evidence exists to suggest social predation among ebylosaurids. However, its agility and speed would have made it a formidable ambush predator, capable of hiding in undergrowth or stalking low ridgelines before bursting forth in a sudden attack. Its robust cervical vertebrae hint at a neck capable of absorbing shock and delivering powerful side swipes with the head, perhaps used not only in predation but also in intraspecific combat, a form of non-lethal dominance display common among modern-day reptiles. One remarkable aspect of the Orcosaurus fossil is the preservation of soft tissue impressions around the skull and neck. These suggest that the animal may have had ornamental skin features, possibly wattles, keratinous knobs or skin flaps, that could have been brightly colored or used for display. This supports the broader hypothesis that ebylosaurids, though terrifying predators, also engaged in visual signaling, particularly during mating rituals or territorial disputes. In life, Orcosaurus may have been just as visually arresting as it was deadly, combining stealth with flair in an evolutionary dance shaped by both survival and spectacle. The environment of late Cretaceous Patagonia was rich in biodiversity, with sauropods like Saltosaurus grazing in herds and armored ankylosaurs trundling through undergrowth. Amidst this variety, Orcosaurus was not the apex predator, but a mid-tier specialist, taking advantage of ecological niches left open by its more massive counterparts. It likely competed with other abylosaurids and perhaps even large crocodiliforms for prey. This competition would have placed evolutionary pressure on Orcosaurus to optimize for efficiency, making the best of a smaller size by evolving extreme agility, striking accuracy, and visual dominance. One anatomical quirk that continues to spark discussion is the animal's tiny, vestigial arms. Some researchers have suggested that, rather than being entirely useless, these limbs may have had a sensory or signaling role, possibly involving muscle vibration, color display, or thermoregulation. Others argue that they were simply evolutionary dead ends, with no real function, an echo of a more limb-reliant past. Either way, the limb reduction seen in Orcosaurus and other abylosaurids is a prime example of how evolution doesn't always favor complexity. Sometimes shedding parts can be just as advantageous as developing new ones. In the end, Orcosaurus stands as a symbol of evolutionary specialization pushed to extremes. In the shadows of the giant sauropods and the looming menace of apex predators, it carved out a niche built on speed, surprise, and striking elegance. Its highly reduced arms, reinforced skull, and agile form show how dinosaurs adapted not only to the demands of the hunt, but to the subtle rhythms of life in a complex and competitive ecosystem. The story of Orcosaurus is one of efficiency over excess, minimalism over might, a predator perfectly tuned for its time and place. Part 21. Megaraptor. When paleontologists first unearthed Megaraptor in the Patagonian sediments of Argentina, the initial impression was one of a terrifying predator armed with an enormous curved claw that rivaled even the infamous talons of dromaeosaurs. At over 30 centimeters long, this claw was originally thought to belong on the foot, like those of Velociraptor. But subsequent discoveries revealed something unexpected. The claw belonged to the hand. This realization shifted the entire understanding of what Megaraptor was. Rather than a raptor-like killer in the traditional sense, it represented a wholly different kind of theropod, one whose massive grasping forelimbs had evolved into precision tools for capturing prey. Megaraptor wasn't small. It stretched nearly 8 to 10 meters long, placing it in the size class of other formidable late Cretaceous predators. However, its body proportions were lean and elongated, built for speed and reach rather than sheer bulk. The forelimbs were shockingly large compared to most other theropods, with elongated fingers that ended in sharp, blade-like claws. Its arms were so powerful and flexible that they likely played the central role in subduing prey, perhaps functioning much like grappling hooks or raking talons that could hook, drag, or pin down victims in a swift, calculated attack. Its skull was narrower and more lightly built than those of tyrannosaurids, suggesting a different hunting strategy, one reliant not on bone-crushing force, but on accuracy and finesse. Megaraptor likely had a relatively quick bite and a fast-striking head, more akin to a monitor lizard than to a bulldozing predator like T-Rex. Paired with its long limbs and agile frame, this would make it a high-mobility hunter, well adapted to targeting fast or lightly armored prey, such as juvenile sauropods, hadrosaurs, or smaller ornithischians. Its lifestyle may have resembled that of a modern-day big cat, solitary, patient, and devastatingly effective in ambush. The place of Megaraptor in the dinosaur family tree has been a subject of continuous debate. For years, its classification was a tug-of-war between different groups. Was it a giant dromaeosaur, a close relative of allosauroids, or perhaps an odd cousin of tyrannosauroids? It wasn't until more complete skeletons were unearthed, including juvenile specimens and better skull material, that scientists began to pin down its affinities. Megaraptor is now often placed within the enigmatic group Megaraptora, a branch of theropods potentially related to the Coelurosaurs and perhaps even falling within the broader tyrannosauroid lineage. This surprising possibility underscores the unpredictable branching of dinosaur evolution across the southern hemisphere. One of the most intriguing aspects of Megaraptor is how it diverged from the dominant carnivorous model of its time. In North America and Asia, the apex predator role was almost monopolized by the stocky, deep-skulled tyrannosaurs. In South America, where Megaraptor lived, the apex roles were more varied. Abelisaurids like Carnotaurus were common, but so were Megaraptorids, agile, long-limbed, and perhaps more intelligent hunters. These dinosaurs filled ecological roles left open by the absence or rarity of tyrannosaurids in Gondwana. It's a reminder that evolution doesn't play favorites. It adapts to opportunity, geography, and timing. Juvenile Megaraptor specimens have provided important glimpses into their growth patterns. These younger individuals show proportionally longer legs and less developed claws, hinting that as Megaraptor matured, it shifted from relying on leg-based speed to more claw-driven manipulation. This ontogenetic shift mirrors what is seen in some modern predators, where the hunting strategy evolves alongside physical development. It's also possible that juvenile Megaraptors filled different ecological roles than adults, reducing competition within the species, a trait seen in animals like Komodo dragons and crocodilians today. The environment Megaraptor lived in was teeming with opportunities and danger. Lush river systems, seasonal floodplains, and dense forests covered parts of late Cretaceous Patagonia. Massive sauropods like Yutyrannus and smaller herbivores like Talankaun roamed the landscape, along with competing predators such as abelisaurids and perhaps even early birdline theropods. In this dynamic ecosystem, Megaraptor's long arms and claws would have been more than just weapons. They were instruments of interaction with its surroundings, used perhaps for climbing, nest raiding, or tearing into carcasses that other predators couldn't access. The evolution of such prominent claws also hints at the potential for complex behaviors. While primarily used in predation, these claws may have had other uses: territorial displays, mating rituals, or even intraspecific combat. In many modern predators, visual intimidation plays a major role in dominance. A megaraptor raising its arms to display those scythe-like claws could have communicated aggression or status to rivals without a fight. It's speculative, but plausible, considering how often evolution repurposes anatomical features for communication alongside survival. In Megaraptor, evolution carved a new path, a predator that leaned into manual dexterity rather than brute force. Its existence challenges the conventional image of Cretaceous carnivores and expands the possibilities of theropod behavior and specialization. With each fossil discovery, the picture sharpens: a sleek, long-armed hunter slicing through the shadows of ancient Patagonia with grace and precision. Megaraptor represents the adaptability and creative twists of dinosaur evolution, proving that there was more than one way to rule the food chain. Part 22. Baryonyx. When Baryonyx walker was first discovered in 1983 in a clay pit in Surrey, England, it shattered expectations of what a carnivorous dinosaur could be. At over 9 meters long, with an unusually elongated skull, powerful arms, and a hand claw more than 30 centimeters in length, it bore more resemblance to a crocodilian or a giant heron than to a typical theropod. This combination of traits offered an extraordinary glimpse into one of the earliest known members of the Spinosauridae family, flesh-eating dinosaurs that hunted not just on land, but at the water's edge. Its discovery marked the beginning of a shift in understanding theropod diversity, revealing ecosystems where dinosaurs waded, swam, and fished. The most striking feature of Baryonyx is undoubtedly its snout. Long and narrow, the skull tapers toward a set of conical teeth that bear no serrations, perfect for grasping, but not for slicing flesh. These teeth mirror those of modern fish-eating animals like gharials or dolphins, indicating a diet at least partially based on aquatic prey. In fact, when paleontologists studied the stomach contents of the original Baryonyx specimen, they found partially digested scales from a fish called lepidotes, preserved within the ribcage. Alongside these were fragments of what appeared to be a young iguanodontid dinosaur, suggesting an opportunistic and flexible carnivorous diet. Its crocodile-like jaws were accompanied by a skull that included a prominent rosette near the snout tip, a bulge that housed enlarged premaxillary teeth. These functioned almost like fishhooks, anchoring slippery prey during the initial strike. Above its eyes were raised crests, possibly for display or species recognition. While not as flamboyant as the cranial structures of later spinosaurids, like Spinosaurus or Irritator, these ridges may have had visual importance in social behavior or mate selection. It's a subtle but telling feature, one that hints at a world of behavior now lost to time. Unlike most theropods, which relied heavily on their jaws, Baryonyx also possessed unusually robust forelimbs. These were armed with a huge inner claw, similar in shape and size to those of dromaeosaurs, but likely used in a different manner. Rather than slashing at prey in a leaping attack, Baryonyx may have used its powerful arms to hook fish from the water, stab into soft-bodied prey, or rip apart carcasses. The curvature and size of the claw also suggest a role in grasping or pinning. In a way, Baryonyx operated with a different playbook, a predator not just of flesh, but of fluid environments and layered niches. The structure of the body further supports this semi-aquatic lifestyle. though not as drastically adapted for swimming as later Spinosaurids. Baryonyx had features consistent with a wading predator. Its hips were narrow, its torso long, and its hind limbs relatively short, giving it a low center of gravity. The tail was deep and flexible, possibly contributing to balance while stalking along muddy banks or while standing partially submerged. While it may not have been a fully aquatic hunter like Spinosaurus is often imagined, it likely spent much of its life near water, relying on a hybrid strategy of ambush and scavenging. There is some evidence that Baryonyx might have been an early experiment in ecological specialization. Living during the early Cretaceous, around 125 million years ago, it predates most of the more derived Spinosaurs and may represent an ancestral body plan. Later Spinosaurs would evolve even more pronounced aquatic adaptations: broader feet, paddle-like tails, denser bones for buoyancy control. But Baryonyx shows the transitional steps, the beginning of a lineage testing the boundaries of what theropods could do in aquatic settings. It's a key evolutionary puzzle piece, documenting a shift from terrestrial dominance to aquatic exploration. Fossils of related Spinosaurids have been found across Europe, Africa, and South America, suggesting that these fish-eating theropods enjoyed a widespread distribution and diversified quickly. Baryonyx itself may have ranged further than initially thought, and some fragmentary remains from Spain and Portugal suggest the genus or close relatives might have inhabited broader regions of Western Europe. This widespread speaks to a successful ecological model: predators that could exploit rivers, lakes, and coastal zones in ways other dinosaurs didn't. Young Baryonyx individuals are still poorly understood, but based on the few juvenile bones recovered, it's likely that the species experienced significant changes as it grew. Younger animals may have hunted different prey, possibly relying more on insects or small vertebrates, before graduating to a mixed diet of fish and dinosaurs. The growth of the claw and the elongation of the skull over time suggest an ontogenetic shift in behavior, a phenomenon increasingly recognized in many predatory dinosaurs, where juveniles and adults occupy different ecological roles to minimize intraspecific competition. Baryonyx rewrote expectations of what a large carnivorous dinosaur could be. It didn't charge across open plains in pursuit of prey. It fished with finesse, scavenged when it could, and filled a unique ecological role few theropods dared to occupy. Its long jaws, powerful arms, and semi-aquatic leanings helped forge a path that other Spinosaurs would follow and refine over millions of years. In the ancient rivers of Cretaceous Europe, it was the silent fisherman, patient, precise, and profoundly different from its roaring cousins. Part 23. Therizinosaurus. Therizinosaurus is one of the strangest dinosaurs ever discovered, a towering, slow-moving herbivore equipped with scythe-like claws over a meter in length. Originally unearthed in the late Cretaceous sediments of Mongolia in the 1940s, it baffled paleontologists for decades. The claws were so large and intimidating that the animal was initially mistaken for a gigantic turtle-like creature, possibly a predator. Only later did it become clear that this enigmatic dinosaur belonged to a bizarre group of theropods, typically meat-eaters, who had reversed course and become some of the strangest herbivores in Mesozoic history. At full size, Therizinosaurus cheloniformis stood over 10 meters long, with a pot-bellied body, long neck, and a relatively small skull perched atop its gangly frame. Despite its theropod ancestry, it likely moved slowly and deliberately, supported by a broad pelvis and stout hind limbs that helped it balance its considerable bulk. Unlike the agile predators it was distantly related to, such as Velociraptor or Tyrannosaurus, Therizinosaurus was built like a cross between a sloth and a giant bird, its appearance equal parts intimidating and alien. The claws are without comparison in the dinosaur world. Measuring over 1 meter from base to tip, they are the longest known from any terrestrial animal. These sickle-shaped structures were not used for hunting or combat in the conventional sense. Instead, they likely served a variety of non-lethal purposes, reaching for foliage high in trees, pulling down branches, or deterring predators through sheer visual display. Covered in keratin sheaths in life, these claws would have appeared even more massive, giving Therizinosaurus an almost supernatural presence in the late Cretaceous forests of Central Asia. Its diet is another defining feature. Though descended from meat-eaters, Therizinosaurus had a skull better suited for browsing than biting. The jaws were toothless at the front, but lined with small leaf-shaped teeth in the back, ideal for grinding plant matter. A large gut cavity suggests fermentation chambers, necessary to break down tough plant fibers. Some researchers even suspect it may have consumed a variety of foods, from fruits and leaves to possibly even small invertebrates, though the latter remains speculative. This shift from carnivory to herbivory is a prime example of evolutionary experimentation in the theropod lineage. Therizinosaurus is part of a broader group known as Therizinosaurs, which appear to have gradually lost their predatory traits in favor of plant-based diets. Earlier relatives like Bipiosaurus still retain some predatory features, such as smaller claws and more carnivore-like teeth. But by the time of Therizinosaurus, the transformation was complete. It had fully embraced its role as a high browser, thriving in a niche unoccupied by other theropods. The change speaks volumes about dinosaur adaptability, especially within groups long thought to be ecologically rigid. Its feathers add another twist. Though no direct fossil of Therizinosaurus has preserved plumage, several of its close relatives have been found with filamentous feathers and even down-like coats. This suggests that Therizinosaurus was almost certainly feathered, possibly in a display of shaggy dark plumes or even brightly colored patterns for communication or mating. Feathers in such a massive non-flying dinosaur challenge assumptions about their original purpose. Rather than flight, they may have served for insulation, intimidation, or ornamentation. Living around 70 million years ago, Therizinosaurus shared its environment with a host of more traditional predators, including the formidable Tarbosaurus. In such a hostile ecosystem, it's possible the dinosaur's size, armament, and unusual appearance served as deterrents. A full-grown Therizinosaurus would have been difficult to take down, and its long reach meant it could ward off threats with sweeping strikes. Whether this defense was ever tested is uncertain, but the animal's anatomy suggests it wasn't defenseless despite its peaceful lifestyle. Therizinosaurus may also have engaged in complex social behaviors. The presence of large claws and potentially colorful feathers points toward visual displays for courtship or dominance. In modern animals, exaggerated features like antlers or crests often play roles in reproductive competition, and Therizinosaurus may have followed suit. These claws, once thought to be weapons of predation, may have been the dinosaurian equivalent of a peacock's tail, used more for impressing than attacking. No other dinosaur combines such an odd array of traits: massive size, delicate jaws, slicing claws, bird-like hips, and probable feathers. Therizinosaurus remains one of evolution's most remarkable detours, a vegetarian giant descended from carnivorous ancestors, shaped by time into something wholly unique. Its discovery not only expanded the boundaries of dinosaur diversity, it also revealed how life can break molds and rewrite its own rules, even in a world dominated by tooth and claw. Part 24. Dinosaurus. For over 50 years, Dinosaurus was a riddle. First discovered in 1965, all that was known of the animal were two massive forelimbs unearthed in Mongolia's Gobi Desert, each stretching over 2.4 meters long, ending in wickedly curved claws. For decades, these limbs stood in isolation, a mystery mounted in museums with no clear sense of what kind of creature they belonged to. The name itself, meaning terrible hand, captured the confusion and awe it inspired. Only in 2014, when additional fossils were finally described, did the full, bizarre anatomy of Dinosaurus mirificus begin to come into focus, and it was stranger than anyone expected. This was not the sleek predator that some paleontologists had imagined. Instead, Dinosaurus turned out to be a pot-bellied, duck-billed behemoth with a humpbacked sail and enormous arms more suited to foraging than fighting. It belonged to the ornithomosaurs, a group of theropods often referred to as ostrich-mimic dinosaurs for their long legs and toothless beaks. But Dinosaurus shattered that mold with its immense size, growing to over 11 meters in length and weighing as much as 6 tons. It became by far the largest known ornithomosaur and the most anatomically peculiar. Its skull revealed a broad, flattened snout, not unlike a hadrosaur's, tipped with a wide, shovel-like beak. The lower jaw lacked teeth, indicating it relied on cropping and possibly sifting through vegetation, aquatic plants, or soft-bodied prey. Inside its body cavity, fossilized fish scales and gastroliths, small stones swallowed to aid digestion, were found, suggesting an omnivorous diet. This blend of herbivory and opportunistic feeding is not uncommon in large dinosaurs, but Dinosaurus makes the case more dramatically than most, resembling a strange hybrid of an ornithomimid, a duck, and a camel. Its spine carried a tall series of neural spines forming a hump or sail across its back. The exact purpose of this structure remains debated, though it may have been used for fat storage, display, or thermoregulation. Unlike the sharp-spined sails of Spinosaurus, this hump was more subdued, possibly resembling the fatty humps of modern camels. This physical trait hints at a more sedentary lifestyle than its smaller, more agile relatives, with long periods spent foraging in open floodplains or resting beside water sources. The arms, once thought to belong to a predator, were likely used in an entirely different context. With long clawed fingers and robust musculature, they may have helped Dinosaurus rake vegetation, dig for roots, or strip branches. Despite their size, the arms lacked the mechanics for slashing or grasping prey, and the claws were blunt and likely covered in a keratin sheath, better suited for non-combative tasks. These powerful limbs, combined with a large gut and wide pelvis, align with the anatomy of a peaceful browser rather than a killer. Its legs were relatively short compared to other ornithomosaurs, which were built for speed. Dinosaurus, by contrast, moved slowly, its massive frame supported by thick, weight-bearing limbs. Its tail acted as a counterbalance to the heavy torso and wide hips, maintaining equilibrium as it walked across muddy deltas or shallow lake beds. Despite being related to agile runners like Gallimimus, Dinosaurus had adopted an entirely different lifestyle, more akin to a ground-dwelling herbivore than a sprinting forager. The environment it inhabited was a complex wetland system in what is now the Nemegt Formation of Mongolia. This late Cretaceous landscape was dotted with rivers, forests, and seasonal floodplains, teeming with fish, turtles, small mammals, and other dinosaurs. Coexisting species included the tyrannosaurid Tarbosaurus, the long-necked sauropod Nemegtosaurus, and the crested theropod Gallimimus. Dinosaurus likely had few natural predators as an adult, its sheer size making it an unattractive target for all but the most desperate or bold carnivores. Among all its eccentric features, the most remarkable aspect of Dinosaurus may be what it represents in evolutionary terms. Its anatomy demonstrates how a lineage can diverge dramatically from its ancestral blueprint. From lean, fast-running theropods came a waddling, paddle-snouted generalist. Such extreme morphological innovation highlights the versatility of dinosaur lineages and their ability to exploit niches previously unimaginable, even within groups known for their specialization in speed and predation. Dinosaurus was not just a paleontological curiosity, it was a window into how evolution builds novelty. With its massive arms once thought to signal terror, its peaceful habits came as a surprise to science. The complete fossil rewrote decades of speculation and stood as a powerful reminder of how much remains hidden in the fossil record. In life, Dinosaurus may have plodded slowly through the wetlands of ancient Asia, unhurried and unchallenged, a creature whose very oddity ensured its success in a world full of more predictable giants. Part 25. Australovenator. When Australovenator was first unearthed in Queensland, Australia, in 2006, it brought with it a storm of excitement. Not because it was the biggest or the most bizarre dinosaur discovered, but because it was a theropod in a continent where few good carnivorous dinosaur skeletons had ever been found. Nicknamed Banjo after the Australian poet Banjo Paterson, this mid-sized predator helped fill a gaping hole in the southern hemisphere's fossil record. It revealed a sleek, agile hunter with a lightly built frame and exceptionally well-preserved limbs, offering a rare glimpse into the life of meat-eaters in Cretaceous Australia. Australovenator winternensis lived roughly 95 million years ago during the mid-Cretaceous period, a time when Australia was part of the supercontinent Gondwana. It shared its environment with long-necked titanosaurs, armored ankylosaurs, and primitive ornithopods. This carnivore, estimated to be around 6 meters long and weighing up to 500 kilograms, was built for speed and maneuverability. Its skeleton showed adaptations for swift slashing attacks, with long legs, a narrow body, and a surprisingly lightweight skull that would have given it a fast bite rather than a crushing one. One of its most striking features was its hands. Unlike the tiny arms of tyrannosaurs, Australovenator's forelimbs were large and muscular, with 3 elongated fingers tipped with curved blade-like claws. These claws, especially the first digit, were not only capable of gripping prey, but also possibly of tearing into flesh or holding down struggling animals. CT scans of the fossilized bones revealed a high degree of wrist mobility, implying it could flex and rotate its arms with agility, an ability rare among large theropods. In many ways, these hands were its primary killing tools. Australovenator belonged to a group called the Neovenatarids, close relatives of Allosauroids. Unlike the massive, robust allosaurs of the Jurassic, Neovenatarids were generally lighter and more agile. They represent an evolutionary branch that adapted to different ecological roles across Gondwana after Pangaea's breakup. The presence of Australovenator in Australia not only emphasized the continent's unique evolutionary path, but also suggested that these agile predators may have filled the role occupied elsewhere by tyrannosaurids or larger carcharodontosaurs. The fossil site at Winton, where Australovenator was found, paints a vivid picture of its world. This region was once a sprawling forested floodplain, dotted with swamps and slow-moving rivers. The sediment preserved bones in fine detail, including those of sauropods like Diamantinosaurus, which may have occasionally found themselves on the wrong end of Australovenator's claws. Trace fossils hint that this was a lush, warm environment, possibly subject to seasonal rainfall, creating a dynamic ecosystem teeming with prey. Despite its predatory nature, Australovenator wasn't necessarily the apex predator in its habitat. The fossil record in Australia is still incomplete, and there may have been larger theropods sharing the region. But in terms of adaptability and anatomical refinement, Banjo was a masterclass in efficient killing. Its bones reflect a creature that could hunt with precision, using vision, speed, and dexterity to subdue smaller prey or pick off juveniles from larger herds. Australovenator's discovery was a breakthrough not just because of what it revealed about theropods, but because it ignited renewed interest in Australian dinosaurs. Until then, most of Australia's dinosaur record was fragmentary and heavily reliant on isolated teeth and bones. Banjo was among the first reasonably complete meat-eating dinosaurs found on the continent, and it showed how much had yet to be uncovered. It also demonstrated the importance of regional diversity in dinosaur evolution, proving that even remote Gondwanan ecosystems produced predators as refined and specialized as those in Laurasian lands. Fossils of Australovenator have continued to yield insights, especially as new techniques like 3D scanning and digital modeling are applied. Virtual reconstructions of its limbs show how this dinosaur likely crouched low when stalking and used its arms to finish the kill. Studies on the wear patterns of its claws and limb joints have also raised questions about whether it used its hands in ways similar to raptors, grasping prey against the chest and delivering repeated bites with its jaws. In the story of predatory dinosaurs, Australovenator is a testament to elegance and efficiency. It didn't rely on brute strength or overwhelming size. Instead, it used grace, balance, and control to hunt and survive in a world of giants. Its rediscovery has reshaped how scientists understand Australia's prehistoric past and continues to be one of the clearest windows into the country's lost dinosaurian predators. Among the ancient hunters of Gondwana, Banjo stood out not for being the most fearsome, but for being one of the most finely tuned.